Please come on. There we go. There we go. Microphone is working. Hello, darlings and viewers. How are we this 40k day that is today, that is 40k, that's Friday. It's a Friday, that's the important thing. People tend to have less work on weekends, and now we can do that. It's like rest, which is also something I need. VTuber's reacting to Bricky. It's fun. Also, I know a lot of stuff. So when he says a thing, after he's finished saying a thing, I'll be saying a thing so that you know more things. It'll be great. It has been a while since I've done a live stream as well, like more than a month. Definitely more than a month. And I usually do one like once every month. Because the last one was, I think, Typhon being announced? That sounds about right. Law for the Law Throne. Or the Lex. Because you've got to Latinize it and then you do the other version of law. That's working. That's working. What was I saying? Yes, streaming. Haven't done much streaming. I've had quite a bit of gaming though. I played quite a few Sisters games, so that's where you got lots of videos about Sisters. I've then played some Deathwatch. The thing about the Deathwatch is they haven't changed at all in the kind of units you should take or the tactics you should use. The meta for them is like exactly the same as it was 2 months ago. Indomitor kill teams want to pop up and shoot. It's great if they have a captain so that they can do that a bit better. It's all about the infantry. Deathwatch veterans come and smash with big hammers. I still prefer a close combat style of Deathwatch, so I use the Gladius Task Force more than I use the Black Spear Task Force. Different kind of task force. Oh, I'm glad the Champions of Faith video helped. Yeah, the Champions of Faith are better. They're still not my style. And it works better at smaller games than larger games. Because if you think about a 1,000 point game, if you pick 3 units that are going to be super powerful, that may be your 3 powerful units, and that's about it. I wish the Deathwatch kill teams were actual kill teams. Like if they were in the game kill team, that would be nice. But Games Workshop would have to make new models for them, and considering that this edition, they've had an index, been stuck into Imperial agents, then pulled out and put into an index with 1 detachment plus all of the Space Marine ones, of course. I don't think they're doing new Deathwatch things. In fact, the last time they did things for Deathwatch was 7th edition. Otherwise, they've just been remaking the kill team structure over and over again. Army of Faith is my favourite way to play Battle Sisters. It has flavour, it has defence, which is nice. It does require some use, some like training to use it. How to get more miracle dice, when to use those miracle dice. And I keep playing Army of Faith, which is really good at killing enemy hordes and like combined arms forces. It doesn't do great against tanks, apart from throwing lots of melter shots at things and hoping that they go away. That's about it. Running a list with triple Exorcists. Yeah, that's good, that's good. I'm thinking that the Exorcist needs a video of its own. For sure. With Agents just got nice army rule. Yeah, they could do with an army rule. They really could do with an anything. They had a Grotmus detachment, which was the failed Blade Elimination Force, which is without a doubt the worst detachments ever created. But it's kind of thematic if you want to play it one-off, then it's fine. Bringers of Flame, 6 Immolators, 3 Split Dominion Squads. That is pretty good if you have 6 Immolators. That is a useful list. And Bringers of Flame is not a dead or destroyed detachment. It is not as good as it was, of course, when the Codex came out. It's still very functional. Having Assault on everything is really nice, because so many of the Sisters units don't want to charge. Why would we charge? We just move forward, shoot guns, and then sit on objectives? Yeah, there are objectives. Love the videos on Genestealer Cult. Oh, character conversion. Yeah, character conversion helps a lot. Saves you so much money. What else was there? Oh yeah, other things I've played. I have then played with some Genestealer Cults a bit, with Final Day, to see how the Raveners are working. The Raveners come out tomorrow with Kill Team Typhon, unless it was on pre-order and you may have got it delivered already. But otherwise, I think officially they come out tomorrow. And then there may be some Legends rules for the 3-6 style Raveners. I don't know. When we're done with them, then I'll have a video on how to use the Raveners better. What do you think about someone saying Deathwatch and Grey Knights will be rolled into the Agents Codex? I think that's kind of reasonable, kind of. Definitely for Grey Knights, who haven't had a range since like 5th edition is when their range came out, and hasn't really changed since then. And they work almost entirely within the Ordo Malleus, and they're not Space Marines. They don't have the Adepta Sororitas keyword, they operate rather differently, and very psychery. So I can see them working in the Agents Codex. I would also stick Knights in the Agents. That's not a bad idea, because otherwise you have a very small number of units, and their thing is, yeah, we're horrible big stumpy robots. With Imperial Agents, they have some diversity of units. You can have infantry, you can have some actual tanks, and then the Imperial Agents get Knights. Your Stompy boys are really powerful, because 370 points for Canis Rex? That's impressive, considering all the things they could do. Yeah, it'd be nice if they had actual working Grey Knights Deathwatch, but it's like a couple of units. It's not the best, even if you have the Legends Deathwatch units. And it gets confusing when you have the Legends Deathwatch units, which are Imperial Agents, like Kill Team Cassius and the Proteus Kill Team. But when you put them in a Space Marine army, are they Deathwatch, like keyword, to stop, say, the Oath of Moment working? Or are they not? Are they Imperial Agents, which shouldn't affect the Oath of Moment, because they could never use Oath of Moment anyway? It's a difficult one. And Games Workshop is not clear, because there are 2 sets of functioning rules for this one sub-faction. Well, we'll probably have to like faff around with that for another year, and then we'll be fine. Armies I've faced, Imperial Knights, have got cheaper. Their toughness is lowered, the armigers haven't gone down in points, which is really important, but they are toughness 9, so Melter Guns from the Battle Sisters wound them on 4s. Same for the War Dogs of the Chaos Knights. And the other knights, the bigger knights, have also got a lowering of toughness, so they're like toughness 11. So if you're strength 6, you win them on 5s instead of 6s. If you're strength 12, like a las cannon, you win them on 3s, or with Oath of Moment on a 2, which is rather spicy. And they have more wounds, which is kind of fun, because they can take more damage. You can see that you are damaging them, rather than, yeah, I passed my armor save, or, oh, you didn't succeed on the wound roll. Even many of the other really big knights no longer have a 2+ save, they have a 3+ save. So they're much more damageable, but they have more wounds to absorb that damage, which I think is a perfectly reasonable way of doing it. I just wish they wouldn't have that feel no pain, which is so annoying. Just feel no pain is a rule. I do not like feel no pain. There are better ways to express toughness, like toughness, armor save, number of wounds. Oh yeah, demo charges are wounding them on 4s rather than 5s. If you want to use demo charges, that's pretty good. I have blown up armigers and war dogs with demo charges before. It's fun. I didn't in the last game. But in the last game, my MVP was the Patriarch. Because when you charge anything at the Patriarch, or a similar unit that has like fight phase, debuff, leadership stuff. So they charge against the Patriarch on an objective, or a unit near the Patriarch, they have to take a Battle Shock test. If it's their own turn, and they fail it, well, you can't use command reroll on Battleshock tests. You can't use Insane Bravery because that is the command phase only. So they're on their base leadership, which is a 6 or a 7. If they fail it, now they can't hold an objective. And that is the whole thing with knights. A dead knight and a knight on 0 or C is about the same. Obviously, we want them dead, but if we can have them on 0 objective control, that works about as well. They charge in, they don't kill enough, there's at least one model left alive, maybe it's the Patriarch, maybe it's someone else on the objective. Oh, it's my objective for the whole of my turn until the start of your next turn. And in the fight phase again, if the Patriarch's still around, you have to take another Battleshock test. So I have a new appreciation for things like the Patriarch's mini Shadow in the Warp that makes Battleshock tests happen in the fight phase, not just for getting rid of the enemy's ability to use stratagems. So I beat some knights. I've also faced Mordaka, the nerfed version of Mordaka. Of course, you know, I faced the super powerful, amazing version of Mordaka. Was that with my Genestealer Cults or my sisters? Genestealer Cult, I want to say? Pretty sure it was Genestealer Cult. Because this wasn't the 150 Poxwalkers. This was the other tournament. With Centurions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Genestealer Cult. That was last time. This time, I faced them with my Deathwatch. The amount of shots they can put out from the looters, from the pirates, the pirate orcs, all of that at damage 2, with the assault keywords so they can all move really quickly and shoot. No, it wasn't Paul. Then they can do damage 2 stuff, and they can shoot back at you in your turn if you don't kill them all, which you're kind of unlikely to do. Flash gits, that's it. Yes. Big guys, big guns, pirate hats. 4 shots each if they shoot the closest unit. You kill one of them, it's hard to kill all of them because they're 2 wounds each, they're toughness 5, they have a 4+ save. Same for looters, where there's 10 of them plus a mech. You're not going to get the whole unit, and then they can shoot back at you. It's pretty nasty. Oh yeah, when I faced the Imperial Knights, I did hit them with, I think Aberrants? Still wounding on 5s. And I wasn't in one of the detachments that gives you bonuses to wound. I wasn't in a Biopsychic Brute Surge, this was Final Day. I was doing more Final Day stuff with Raveners. Wounding on a 5, it's fine. Doing loads of damage, great, gonna kill it for sure. And then he passed like half the 6+ Feel No Pains. We're talking 16 wounds, and there were 8 6s. And I wanted to roll those dice for the rest of the game. Of course, they finished it off in the coming fight phase, but still, Feel No Pain is so annoying. Oh, rip to the Daka lads. You can always try them with the previous rules. I'm sure they're still able to be found. Although in their current version, they're still not too bad. Same as I encourage people to still use the Bringers of Flame detachment for the Adepta Sororitas. The Mordaka detachment still hurts really hard in the new version. I think I lost half my Deathwatch after turn 2. And that was with their turn 2. So they shot twice and once in my turn. That was enough shooting to take out half my army. That's pretty nasty. Loyalist Marines feel kind of squishy. Especially the new God Mark Chaos Marines. Like, yeah, the Plague Marines. The World Eaters are not as amazing. I mean, you know, 20 Berserkers will still mess people up. But aside from them, AdMech players love a Feel No Pain. You do get Feel No Pains. I still prefer an idea of increase the toughness, increase the armor save. Something like that is better than it isn't a roll after a roll. Because playing Warhammer Fantasy for years, it is so annoying when you have an armor save, then a ward save, then a regeneration save. It made some characters immortal. And you could tie up enemies for like the whole game. Oh, your best super powerful anti-infantry unit, I charge in with 1 Saurus Old Blood on a Cold One Night. Squiggly dinosaur thing. Mini dinosaur, not the Carnosaur. And yeah, he's got a 2+ save and a 4+ ward save and a 4+ regeneration. It's like, aha! Yeah, that's not so good. You can definitely theme these things. Arco-flagellants at toughness 4, if they're not already. I think they're toughness 3. But make them toughness 4 and get rid of the feel no pain. Or they've already given them an extra wound. You can do so many things other than adding an extra wound mechanic that is difficult to explain to new players. And then it slows up the game. Okay, you've taken 9 damage. Don't roll 9 dice. Oh my goodness, don't roll 9 feel no pains. That is not how it works. You have 2 wounds per model, so you have to roll 2 dice, then wait, then roll 2 dice. Okay, that's 1 person dead. Now we'll do another 2 dice. Oh, both failed. That's another person dead. And you keep doing that really, really slowly. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can get the Orc boys from the old world stuff. They're probably going to be much cheaper than the Orcs. And if you're in the UK, I think Orc boys are the next thing in the Hachette Combat Patrol magazine. And it is the good Orc boy kit. The older one. Not the new one that's all monopose and you have to have like 4 boys with choppers and sluggers and 4 boys with shooters. A lot of shots from a shooter. 2 shots and rapid fire 1. I know they're hitting on 5s, but it's many shots. Many, many shots. Come in a box of 31? That's an interesting number. Old World Orcs. They called Orc Boys. Orc Boys Mob. Hmm. 31 Brutal Infantry. Now if I get out of dollars and if I know what kind of dollar I'm using. Yeah, that's a weird number to rank up. Not many boxes will ever come with 31 models. But yeah, it's just guys with choppers, shields, 2 choppers. Pretend they have sluggers. Oh, they can have spears as well. That works pretty well. I like that idea. I really like that idea. Oh yeah, my flagellants mostly are old world flagellants. I didn't know they came in a box of 30. The one I've got is 20. It's weird if they're selling them in bigger sizes now. Maybe it's just more convenient for them. Green Tide takes forever to run. It does. I faced Green Tide a few weeks ago. Maybe it was over a month ago by now. And I was able to beat it because I had Fight First. I had several units with Fight First. It's great to have Fight First when you're fighting the Orcs. It's the most green detachment. The invulnerable save is annoying because the invulnerable save that Orcs have during the war turn is a 5+, and when you have so many Orc boys, and they always have a 5+ invulnerable save, or almost always, depending on the size of the unit, yeah, it takes some getting through. You need to have the right weapons for it. Hordes are much harder to deal with than tanks. If you have an old tank army, you can hide, sort of. You can maybe focus down one of them. But when it's 20 boys, you need to shoot them and then get into combat, and it's difficult. You have to have the right tools. And it's more fun to take out hordes than take out tanks, so I'd rather specialize into anti-horde than anti-tank. You definitely need movement trace. Yeah. You can make a beholder into a demon prince. There's also Doom the board game from 2002 has a bunch of... And they did a remake. They did do a remake. Why was I looking up this recently? I think it was for a video. Must have been. But you can get the Arc Knights, Hell Knights can be spawn or big demony things. The Arc Vial is even bigger. What's the really big one? Cyber Demon. You can have a Cyber Demon as a Demon Prince or Greater Demon. It's wherever you want to get like third-party models from. And third-party models are fine at like all tournaments. Except for Games Workshop ones where they're like, yeah, we would like you to run Games Workshop products, please. Please do that. If you look at I think they just announced a bunch of tournaments happening. There's some interesting rules there that you wouldn't expect to see when it's tournaments. Where are we? Upcoming Warhammer events. Yeah, so you've got doubles and things. There they've said, don't follow the base guide from the tournament set when you're following our tournament rules. Instead, base size is the currently sold base for that model. So there's an option. Quite pleased turning my Combat Patrol Hellbrute into a Demon Prince. I like that. Very good idea. And you can get even cheaper ones. Now I assume this is Combat Patrol the magazine. Because if it's Combat Patrol the magazine, that's definitely a good deal. Oh, so many things. Okay, I'm thinking, now that we've been talking for about half an hour, yeah, magazine, good thing to have. Now we've been talking for about half an hour, I think I'll get the video proper started. So, Mr. Bricky has released the second part of his two-part video. The idea behind this is re-explaining all of the factions of 40k, this time in a more chronologically themed order. I'm guessing that means the Genestealer Cult are going to be last, because they turned up pretty late. And we ended on Leagues of Votan after the first one. We didn't have Sisters, so we were expecting Sisters. We didn't have Genestealer Cult. Genestealer Cult were discovered about 680 by Ortan Cassius, as in Chaplain Cassius of the Death Watch and Ultramarines, just before the first Tyrannic War of 745 in the M41. That's going to be even after the Tau. I mean, it's probably the first time you've seen the Tau. But it's pretty late, so I think the Genestealer Cult will probably be the last one to turn up. Yeah, it depends if you want to think about the Tyranids as... The Tyranids may have entered the galaxy beforehand. It depends where you think Genestealers are. Are they Genestealers part of Tyranids or Genestealers part of Genestealer Cult? Because we know there's been Genestealers in the galaxy long before the Tyranids turned up. So they could be just before the Tyranids. They could be just after the Tyranids. Depends how he wants to theme it. If he's like, aha, I think what he'll do, or this is how I would do it, I would explain the Genestealer Cult and say they are but the precursor for the Tyranids, and the Tyranids are the current threat in the galaxy because of the Fourth Tyrannic War. However, the lore for that has kind of petered out and there's not much there to think about. It's just, much like the Fourth War of Armageddon, it's a thing that happened or is happening and doesn't really have any greater implications other than it's more of the wars. More wars in the 40,000 wars. So as a person who knows all the 40k stuff, this isn't just a reaction with the occasional surprise noise or giggle or haha, I learned a thing because I think I know it already. We're going to add so much more information, more lore, more maybe petty details. Just so the people who want more information and want to know more will know more. And at some point in the video, I do plan to take a break. I think I'll pause the video then, or maybe go back a bit, not sure. Maybe pause, maybe switch to something else. We'll see. The idea with it this time is I'll let him talk for a section, and when that section is done, add more info. Right. So I think we want to be... Here we are. Why are we not working? It's not on the screen. Why is it not on the screen? Do I have to do that? There we go. That's what I was missing. Okay, there's the video. There shouldn't be any YouTube adverts within this video, so we should be fine for that. I think that's everything. Okay, I'll make sure the audio is on. Let me know how the audio levels are.
This video is part 2 in a 2-part series on every faction re-explained. If you've not seen part 1, you were either snatched by the YouTube algorithm, or you don't let anything, not even common sense, hold you back. And for that, well, I wish I could be that strong. The quest to find the Primarchs was expansive and treacherous, to the point where they really should write a book about it. Despite never seeing the Emperor before in their lives, the Primarchs all instinctively knew who the Emperor was. Whether it's his psychic connection to him or just plain old intuition, the giant golden god is a bit of a giveaway. The Primarchs all lived their own lives, and some lived substantially better lives than others. Rabute Gilliman of the Ultramarines rose through the ranks of his worlds and ended up turning an entire sector into a
with the Discord messages. That's Bricky's Discord messages that kept popping up. There's a little note underneath to say, hey, yeah, he accidentally recorded his own Discord ping, so they're just gonna keep happening. It's not your Discord, it's not my Discord, it's Bricky's Discord.
High-functioning society, where others, like Mortarion, lived on the poisonous hellscape of Barbarous under the boot heel of his own adopted father. When the Emperor arrived, some wanted to play a little bit of catch with their dad at first, and some didn't trust the baseball bat he was carrying, and some didn't want to play at all. Eventually, one by one, the Emperor returned his sons to his side to bring them back together as one happy family. A family who needed a good cleaning. Are you tired of boring old soap? Is your son the foulest being ever? Do your eyes sting when he comes near? Well, clean
he's selling
that
soap.
man
It's a
right
sponsor.
back up with the power of Cheeky. That's right, the brand new moisturizing bar soap brought to you by Moist Critical and Bricky approved. Nurgle hates it, but you'll love it. Bar soap is always so sticky and has a ton of fuss, but now you'll be glowing to the surprise of Lehman Russ. Cheeky soap is so
made it
good,
rhyme.
we didn't even
That
take
makes
a down
things better.
payment for the sponsor. That's right, we love this soap so much, we
Well,
are
I'm not going to
operating
skip it
on
because it's how
100%
I guess Bricky
commission.
makes some
We are
money, and
supported
I'm
purely
sort of making
and
money off his
only
content,
by
so we'll
those
let it
of
run.
you who buy Cheeky.
At least there will be no
best
YouTube
bar
ads.
soap we have ever used. That is not a hyperbole. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. Take it from the man himself.
Bricky's right. It's very good.
Enjoy a multitude of flavors, including
His
lo-fi
face seems to be
lavender,
glowing
Pope
orange. I
Francis,
don't think
just
that's
so
normal.
touch grass, and absolute cinnamon. Cheeky alone has made me swap back to bar soap as my primary choice. No more liquid soap for this brick. Cheeky is the play. Go ahead and go to usecheeky.com/Bricky or code Bricky for 10% off your purchase and domestically support these videos. That's code Bricky
You
at
can buy some soap.
usecheeky.com/Bricky or click the link in the description to learn more.
Good to
Get
know.
clean now.
That's a few Space Marines. Ultramarines. Ultramarines, though.
Oh, yeah, so half his sons turned on him. After the Emperor was able to bring all of his sons back
to Civil
into
War.
the fold again, he sent them on their way with his end goal in mind, reclaiming the lost worlds of humanity. Each of his Primarchs fanned out across the galaxy to accomplish this goal, but the one they were expected to report to was his favored son, and the first one found, allegedly, which was Horus. Horus was granted the title of War Master, and he certainly lived up to Big E's expectations, which were very specific and set by Big E himself to all of his sons. However, either intentionally or not, the Emperor did not mention to his sons some of the more chaotic aspects of the galaxy. Horus himself, while in the
I think
process of
intentionally.
reclaiming a more advanced human world, was informed of the existence of chaos gods, a factoid that Horus initially did not believe. To him, it was a bit unfathomable to think that his father would emit such significant information on the inner workings of the galaxy. However, he soon realized this was the truth, and this betrayal was unacceptable. With the astronomical weight put on his shoulders and his father immediately leaving it all in his hands, combined with the slow corruption of his mind by those closest to him, he began to change his tune. Horus began amassing a following behind his father's back with several other Primarchs and began to formulate plans to usurp him from his throne on Terra. While this was occurring, Magnus the Red tried to FaceTime his dad back on Terra, and that resulted in the shattering of a protective barrier between Terra and the demons of the warp. Due to this damage, the Emperor was forced to sit on the Golden Throne to assure that it would continue to function. Ultimately, half of the Primarchs would fall to chaos, and the remaining half would fight back viciously against their brothers. Horus eventually gained the upper hand and arrived in orbit above Terra itself, and after antagonizing his father enough, the Emperor temporarily removed himself from the throne, strategically putting his old friend there as a seat warmer, and went to confront Horus himself on the Vengeful Spirit, his flagship. The Emperor faced down his son, and after a heated battle and 64 novels, the Emperor managed to obliterate Horus on a subatomic level, but not before his favorite son was able to mortally wound the Emperor. As the dust settled and the traitors fled from Terra, the Emperor's body was dragged back onto the Golden Throne, where it sits permanently to assure that it continues to function. A corpse forced to constantly hold back the horrors of the warp and guide humanity with his pale light. And that light is flickering. From there, the remaining members of the traitors to the Emperor fled to their respective safe havens. These are the veterans of the Long War, the spiteful, and to them, the wronged. Those who would let the galaxy burn if it means the Imperium gets caught in the flames. These are the...
Okay, we'll pause it there. Oh, so... yeah, the link to the original video is in the description, so you can see the original video without my commentary if you so wish. But you're here for my commentary, I assume. Right, the allegedly Horus being the first one to be found is in reference to the 2 missing Primarchs. There are 20 legions initially. In theory, there are 18 Primarchs, so 2 other Primarchs went disappearing somewhere. They may have been the first ones to be found, and there are vague references to Leman Russ being the one who may have killed these Primarchs, or the Emperor killed them, or somehow those legions were disbanded and merged into other legions like the Ultramarines, which is extra big. And the Sons of Horus, I think, is extra big. There were a few of them that are way bigger than they should be. That was a very quick overview of the Horus Heresy. It's in its sort of original form in the first edition. The Horus Heresy is not important. And I think it was only in like one of the spin-off books, expansions about Chaos where it was really mentioned. In the first edition, the Badab War was the big civil war that let your Space Marines fight Space Marines. And when there was like 4 factions in the first edition, Imperial Guard, which was Imperial Army, then the Space Marines, then Eldar and Orks, having a civil war mechanic when people are going to be getting Space Marines was very important. The Badab War was redone in the Imperial Armor books. Alfarius being first? No, I don't know. It also depends if you want to think about psychically connecting with people, because he psychically connected with Magnus before many other of the Primarchs. He was like, oh yeah, hey, son. And Magnus is like, who are you? And why do I know who you are? And why does that scare me? But yeah, Magnus did nothing wrong. He was supposed to do nothing, and he did that one thing wrong. Yeah, the Emperor was then like, okay, I'm going to fight Horus. Malkador the Sigillite is like, yeah, I'm going to go sit on the Golden Throne for a bit to keep it working, and I'll die in the process. And it kind of sucks. Kind of sucks. Then the Emperor's mortally wounded, gets put back on the Golden Throne, and influences the Imperium psychically, and tells the Custodes psychically to do things. He will also later on maybe talk with some Battle Sister leaders, and make the Battle Sisters work. Oh, right, Alfarius may be being found first. Interesting. Cypher is the missing Primarch? Not so sure about that. I'm pretty sure the idea was Primarchs were never planned to be coming back. And I was okay with this, because every legion has its arch leader. Abaddon is the leader of the Black Legion, Khan the Betrayer is the leader of the World Eaters, you have Ahriman leading the Thousand Suns, you have Cypher with the Dark Angels, I guess, but also you have all the Dark Angel characters. That was fine. Then we got all these Primarchs coming back, so now we're expecting, hey, maybe at the end of this edition, we'll get Leman Russ come back, or Corvus Corax come back. Lorgar is hiding inside a tomb that Corax can't get into. But maybe he'll come out. It's unlikely, but we'll see. And Alpharius is either dead, or isn't dead, or he's double dead. Who's to say? It's Alpharius. At this point, no one really cares. Abaddon and Erebus are the people who are close to Horus, who make him fall to chaos. Mainly Erebus, mainly because Lorgar is the first heretic from the book, The First Heretic. And then they're like, okay, these chaos gods exist, we need to worship them because my planet did worship them. And then you did some bad things to me, Emperor. And then he likes chaos, and then he made Horus fall to chaos because that was his whole job. And he did that job. And everyone hates Erebus, and we want him to die. Now, Bricky mentioned veterans of the Long War, and he seemed to be saying that the Horus Heresy was the Long War, so anyone who is a veteran of the Horus Heresy is a veteran of the Long War. Not really. The Long War is the war after the Horus Heresy, the ongoing forever war of the Chaos Space Marines against the Imperium. To the survivors, they don't consider the Horus Heresy war to have ended. After the war, we had the Scouring, which is when they're fleeing the galaxy, mostly into the Eye of Terra. And that was where they're mostly fighting among themselves. That's where you have Khan betraying and shattering his legion, the Emperor's children cloning Horus, and Abaddon fighting to destroy his pretender to claim his throne as now the leader of the Black Legion. The sons of Horus give up the green and go to black armor. And then time gets weird within the reality-bending warp that is the Eye of Terra. So for many of the veteran Chaos Space Marines, they could have been inductee and barely qualify as a Space Marine, or they could have been one of the first Space Marines like Araman, who was born on Terra, and then made into a Space Marine, and then sent out into the galaxy, and then given a Legion moniker. It's been like a century or a few decades within the Eye of Terra, between the end of the Horus Heresy and the 13th Black Crusade. That is why we have veterans of this long war, while barely any loyalist Space Marines, apart from Dreadnoughts, have lived the 10,000 years. Like the entire Imperial Fist chapter, not necessarily all successors, but that one chapter was destroyed in the War of the Beast and everyone killed. Then brought back. Long War is a mod for XCOM. I enjoyed that mod. It's a very good mod. I recommend it. If you want to play XCOM 1, and I think I prefer XCOM 1 over XCOM 2. Which is a little controversial because people really liked XCOM 2. It's a good game. It's a good game. Wonder what Abaddon would think if he knew what Horus really thought in his last moments before he finally sees the truth of it all. He would probably go, well, nice for him. I'm going to be the leader of the Black Legion. I don't really care what Horus wanted. And he does this whole thing where he's not making pacts with the gods. He has his demon sword. He has the talons of Horus. He's not saying, hey, Khorne, why don't you let me be a patron and give me stuff. He doesn't really do that. On the tabletop, he can do the same dark pact as anyone else. But yeah. And he hasn't gone into detail on all... Oh, he might be about to go into detail on all of the different Chaos Space Marines. So let's hear that.
And what are the achievements of your fragile Imperium? It is a corpse rotting slowly from within while maggots writhe in its belly. It was built with the toil of heroes and giants, and now it is inhabited by frightened weaklings to whom the glories of those times are half-forgotten legends. I have forgotten nothing, and my wisdom has expanded far beyond mere mortal frailties. The Horus Heresy saw the collapse of the Imperium as we knew it at the time, and half of the Space Marine legions fell to the ruinous powers. Though the favored son, War Master Horus, was killed and the rebellion ended, the heretical forces retreated to the warp and remain a constant threat to this day. The twisted reminder of what the temptations
Spiky.
of the warp may bring, the Chaos Space Marines act as a mirror to the loyal legions.
Spiky
and as
Space
time
Marines.
progresses, their warp taint further changes them to suit the needs of their patron deity. Though marred and absolutely mangled by the ruinous powers, they are still unmistakably Space Marines in stature and shape, and according to them, they have never been more free. After the heresy, the loyal legions of Space Marines became very strict in their organization, and their separation into separate chapters with capped numbers and other formalities was done to prevent any form of heresy from happening again. The Chaos Space Marines are a bit different. Ultimately, these Marines are subject to the primary legions that fell to Chaos in the first place. The majority of these legions, the
Some
Black
traded
Legion,
chapters.
the Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and the Night Lords, are supporters of Chaos undivided, either enjoying the powers of all Chaos gods or sometimes shunning them altogether. But a few of them follow a very specific Chaos god. Thousand Sons are followers of Tzeentch, the Death Guard follows Nurgle, Slaanesh has their claws in the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters are avid followers of Khorne. From there, the legions themselves are separated into roaming war bands that may go under their own unique names or may stake a claim to one of the primary legions. Most of the gear and armor of a Chaos Space Marine remains the same, but stylistically it changes quite a bit to reflect the intention of the legion or their patron god. The Death Guard's armor has become rotted and full of gaping mouths and plague-filled boils. The World Eater's sharp and violent armor reflects their bloodthirst, and the chaotic noise of the Emperor's Children armor, nipple rings included, pleases Slaanesh greatly.
That's a nipple
Due
ring
to the
on
taint
armor.
of Chaos, the armor itself becomes less about plating and more about a new
More about the
skin
spikes.
for any given Chaos Space Marine. Though the Chaos Space Marines have no true fear of death or numbers diminishing, there are still major recruitment efforts for their legions. However, the conscription of these recruits is a lot more chaos-fueled and is more of a forced assimilation, and in some instances, breeding. The organ implementations and other modifications are the same, and the necessity of a gene seed remains the same, but the result is a hell of a lot different. Understanding Chaos Space Marines is a difficult exercise. If we took my original video 5 years back and looked at the Imperial Knights section, it mainly focuses on big stompy robots. Now that I understand more, I can discuss the Code Chivalric, the Throne Mechanicum, Squires, and Monarchs, and bring some more context to it all. To assume Chaos Space Marines are simply the opposite side of Space Marines would be foolish.
They're not opposite, they're
for
spiky.
once you understand the plight of their Primarchs, it can provide a context always needed. Horus himself turned through an overwhelming weight on his shoulders and lies told by his father. But what of Angron? Angron lived as a slave gladiator for his planet's masters, who took Dark Age technology and shoved it into his brain, so experiencing any emotion other than rage was agony for him. He finally leads a revolt for his fellow gladiators and frees himself from the confines of servitude. The Emperor finds him and says he will take him home, but Angron refuses. He will fight with his friends against the tyranny of his slave owners to the last. At the final last stand with him and his closest friends, slave gladiators, all of them outnumbered and on the verge of death, the Emperor
Spartacus.
forcefully teleports Angron to his flagship
Angron.
and none of his compatriots, leaving Angron to live and watch all of his friends die. You kept that mule core Pharaon. Russ kept his kin friends. The Lion kept Luther. Humans, brothers, and foster fathers, saved and raised into Legion ranks. But not me. Not Angron, no. Did the Emperor teleport his gold-wrapped custodians down to help me in my army? No. Did he free the warhounds and order them to battle, fight alongside me? No. Did he save my brothers and sisters the way he spared and honored the Lion's kin, the way he honored Cor Pharaon?
The way I told him not to.
No, and no. No mercy for Angron, Angron the Oathbreaker, Angron the Betrayer. Conrad Kurz lived as a lonely boy, scrounging the dregs of a hive city
Night
plagued
Lords.
by constant visions of an assassin sent to murder him by his own father. Lorgar was born on a world of chaos worshippers with abusive parents, and the Emperor decided the best way to reprimand him was destroy his holy city. The Emperor robbed Mortarion of vengeance and suppressed Magnus at every turn. The question isn't why the Primarchs rebelled. The question is, why didn't they sooner? To them, they are not the betrayers. They are the betrayed. They were under the boot of a golden tyrant, and they finally could be free from his heel. Of course, things have changed a lot since the heresy, and the Primarchs of the Chaos Space Marines that have survived the fall are a twisted variant of what they used to be. They have all, for the most part, ascended to the position of Demon Prince and act as a direct connection between their god and their legion. However, due to the nature of the transformation and dedication to a particular chaos god, their actions tend to be separate from their legion's actions. Fulgrim, for example, is so infatuated with being a Demon Prince of Slaanesh that he is at times far too focused on his own personal perfection as opposed to conquest and sitting around like Frankfurter on his throne. Meanwhile, Lorgar is being stalked by a bird, so he's always on edge. The most adamant against the temptations of the Chaos Gods, Perturabo, was even made a Demon Prince as a reward for being the one who did the most work on the group project. Chaos Space Marines are a fascinating faction because there is a great deal of cognitive dissonance that is represented in them. Depending on which faction you follow, your devotion to chaos is a sliding scale, and the representation in the universe is so varied. Some are there to reap a high tally of kills for their patron deity, while others are there purely to destroy the Imperium who wronged them. Some are there to torture and maim, and some are there to conquest and conquer. There is no unifying glue. They fight each other as much as they fight everyone else, and their machinations are entirely up to their warband. You have all walked different paths, but together we have come to the same destination. The Emperor has failed us. The Imperium has failed us all. It has failed us by the laxity of its laws, the decadence of its culture, and in the injustices heaped upon those of us who serve the most loyally. I assume it's a night. It has failed us by never recognizing our virtues, never rewarding us for the blood we shed and bringing about its ascendancy, and never providing unity when we needed it most. It has failed us by being flawed to its core, imperfect in its pursuit of a perfect culture, and in its weakness against the encroachment of Xenos breeds that seek to twist humanity to alien ends. And it has failed us, most of all, by being founded upon lies. The Imperium is forged by a dangerous deceit and erodes us all by demanding we sacrifice truth on the altar of necessity. This is an empire propagated by sin that deserves to die. And here on Istvan V, we begin the purge. From these ashes shall rise the new kingdom of mankind, an Imperium of justice, faith, and enlightenment, an Imperium heralded, commanded, and protected by the avatars of the gods themselves, an empire strong enough to stand through a future of blood and fire. Naturally, however, as I have said before, Space Marines do not make up the bulk of the fighting force in the Imperium, so it would be ludicrous for me to not mention their dark cousins. The Code Chivalry is the sign of the power of the Imperial Knights. But what about the...
Okay, before we get into the Dark Mechanicum and I assume Chaos Knights, let's talk about the Chaos Space Marines. In their earliest iterations, they were just spiky Space Marines. Very little difference. Same profile, same kind of weapons. But they have slowly got more demon appreciation. And it's only in the last few editions where we have more of an emphasis on, yeah, they have possessed, and they have demon engines, and they're demons, like they don't have dreadnoughts, they have hellbrutes, which are functionally the same, but you don't want to go into a hellbrute. Whereas you may want to be put into a dreadnought. If Dawn knew about, or if the... Yeah, it's probably better not to be like, hey, by the way, there's a warp thing. Don't touch it, though, because then they know about it and they'll want to touch it. I understand that. Yeah. So he's not bringing up Admech after the Chaos Space Marine. This is the Dark Mechanicum. I assume Admech was... I think Admech was in the first part. I think. I don't actually remember. But I'm pretty sure it was in the first part. Yeah, because he talked about the Emperor getting together with Mars, Terra and Mars, and the whole thing. Yeah. There's a lot of spikes on the Chaos Space Marine kit, and there's a lot of trim to paint. So when the Chaos Space Marines recruit, and they do recruit, it's maybe taking in Renegade Space Marines, so there could be Space Marine chapters that turn traitor en masse it's almost always a civil war within that chapter, and then some of them will either take hold of the chapter and it's a traitor chapter, or they'll be sent away, and then you might have the equivalent of like a traitor company. Within one of the older Chaos Space Marine books was a story about how like 5 Ultramarines were on a planet, and the planet had a Genestealer Cult infiltration or a Chaos Space... I think it was a Chaos Cult infiltration. They got rid of that. Then a Genestealer Cult infiltration popped up, and the High Lords... Well, no, the governors of that planet did not want them to super purge, but they super purged, and they kept getting more and more annoyed that the Imperium wasn't giving them the tools to kill all of the cultists. So they killed all the cultists, got a bit blood enthusiastic, and became their own warband. They're like, help the Imperium whether it wants to be helped or not. And that was just a path, a slippery slope into the Dark Gods. It's a good story, that. Good story. Yeah, so they have some gene seed left, but it's getting demon corrupted, so it's not good gene seed, so they don't have as much usable gene seed as Space Marines. They steal gene seed by raiding Space Marine chapter monasteries, and you have the Demonculabra, which is an Iron Warriors thing, which is where you breed a Chaos Space Marine by trying to grow a full human with Space Marine organs within a person's womb. It doesn't have good results, but you get a Chaos Space Marine out of it. I've never quite understood why the Emperor didn't help Angron. I don't think I've read the Angron book. Besides sort of honouring his I want to die part of the slave rebellion, this was one way out, or they could have sent more help, or they could have got everyone out, but I think Angron would have not liked that, and Angron said, I want to die with everyone wants to die. Yeah, it is like Andor's one way out kind of thing. Andor's a good series. I'm sure that it's a sliding scale of Demonculabra to Dark Eldar. Do the Chaos Space Marines have homeworlds in real space or just in the warp? So the Eye of Terra is a place where the warp and real space mix. It's not quite the warp, it's not quite real space. So there are planets there that are like mini homeworlds or new homeworlds of the traitor legions. Can't remember all of the names. But you have like the planet of the sorcerers that is the Thousand Suns, which can also teleport, and at one point teleported near to Fenris, which upset the Space Wolves, and then they fought for a bit, and then Magnus was like, I had this brilliant plan, and some wolf did a wolf thing, and now I'm defeated. Yeah. Spicy Bandit, you have a game tomorrow, Death Guard and Templars, and you want to use Champions of Faith Sisters. Great. Good job. That gives you a small number of units with which to work. Angron and the Emperors, imagine you're a kid with a violent gang, you find out them with a shootout of the violent gang, or do you help that gang? Okay, I kind of see the idea. You're going to have to, like, stomp some heads in the end. And knowing what Angron and the people are like, could you really pluck Angron out of that, then give him a legion and expect everything to be fine? I think the Emperor was a little bit naive there. The Word Bearers used to use religion as a means of societal control. The Emperor banned religion and blew up Lorgar's most compliant city using the Ultramarines. That sort of teaches a lesson, but the Imperium of Man has never been nice. Part of the reason there is no, like, friendly aliens in the galaxy is because whenever the Imperium met them, they would kill them all. You don't have to be as violent as the Orks, or even as the Tau. If you find aliens, you kill the aliens. That was what they first did when they found the, like, primitive Tau. Like, we've got some weird blue cow things stomping around with bones. Yeah, we need to have them destroyed. So that destroying of Monarchia was the start of the Word Bearers hating the Ultramarines, which would lead to a massive fight on Calth later in the Heresy. And Lorgar getting stalked by a bird is a reference to Corvus Corax, the Primarch of the Raven Guard, who said, "Nevermore," real quote, and then he set off into the warp to find Lorgar, because Lorgar's Word Bearers posed as loyal reinforcements to support the Raven Guard at the Istvan 5 dropsite massacre and slaughtered the Raven Guard. And, basically also organized the Horus Heresy between Lorgar and Erebus. So he's hunting them. And he's also become like a demon shapeshifty thing, and I can't remember which book that was in. He took a calculated risk, but he's bad at the math. Yeah, it takes a while to figure out how they should fix them. He could have sent Kurz to Monarchia instead of Gilliman. No, I think he's still upset about having his best and favourite city destroyed, along with several people. Okay, let's continue. Justifiably upset. Maybe not traitorous.
Ruinous powers
civil
claimed
war
during the Horus Heresy extended beyond just the Space Marines and the Primarchs. Mars itself was subject to a revolution that saw half of them fall to chaos as well. And some of the once loyal knight houses saw themselves swearing fealty to the dark gods. The falling of these factions allows for the war machine of chaos to continue uninterrupted and to have firepower equal to that of the Imperium itself. The Dark Mechanicum, as the name suggests, is the chaos-affiliated branch of the Mechanicus, and have a lot more free reign, much like the freedoms of the Chaos Space Marines. The seeds of the Dark Mechanicum were planted fairly early due to some of the Mechanicum not really seeing the Emperor as the Omnissiah immediately, and Horus exploited this to allow the schism to happen a bit more naturally. Unlike their Imperial brothers, the Dark Mechanicum have the ability to invent and innovate. What a concept. While also utilizing forbidden technologies such as the Silica Animus or AI. The Dark Mechanicum do have their own desires to find lost technologies and put them to use, but they're more interested in taking ancient and forbidden technology from Imperial worlds and activating them for their own purposes. Because what good is a bunch of knob and tube wiring if you don't overload it with as many extension cords as possible? However, instead of being clear-cut and more generalized creations, the inventions of the Dark Mechanicum are inherently tied with the warp and its demons. Genetic experimentation and modification, the fusion of man and machine are exceptionally common, and no creation is more reflective of this than the demon engines. Instead of regular tanks and vehicles, the demon engines are machines bound with the presence of demons to make them living war machines. Unlike the vehicles of the Imperium, where a Mechanicus priest may be there to aid in its repair, a Warpsmith sorcerer is there to essentially repair and irritate the demon engine so that it can be a more effective killing machine. In certain factions, like the bitter and siege-loving Iron Warriors, they will lure demons with the promise of glory and easy bloodletting, only to then forcibly trap them into these demonic engines to use as weapons of war against the Imperium. Some lesser gods, like Vashtor the Archifane, is also a contract and arms dealer for the demonic stuff that comes out of chaos. Many demons may sign a pact with Vashtor in the soul forges of the warp, and in doing so are given the weapons of war to kill as much as they can. Should they do so, excellent, you may keep it. Should you not, I hope you enjoy your soul working in the forges for all eternity. That's what you signed with blood and oil. In addition, much like their ties in the Loyalist realm, the Dark Mechanicum and the Chaos Knight houses are deeply intertwined. There were, of course, many knight houses that swore fealty and bent the knee to War Master Horus during the heresy, but a good portion of them had no choice, as they were absorbed by warp storms and corrupted into compliance. Many of these Chaos Knights reflect the very early Dark Age technology knights with more corrupted weapons. The Throne Mechanicum, which once had a noble sitting and taking control of generations of previous drivers and taming a beast, is now a saddle to a monstrosity of wrath and hatred. The nobles of the Chaos Knights fight to aggravate and bring the machine to their will while combating the corrupted minds of their fallen ancestors. Some of these nobles may do such a good job that they themselves fuse into the throne itself and become one with the knight. If a noble dies, no worries at all. Unlike the Imperial ones that require a pilot, a demon can hop into the cockpit and control it instead. The Night Worlds also see full corruption as well. Where there were once peasants, there are now cultists, and the goal of the Chaos Knights are just as chaotic as the gods they follow. Some are sent to war by the ruinous powers, others may protect Dark Mechanicum Forge worlds, and others still may be so hyped up on the ruinous powers that they are just aimless, and reckless, hoping to unravel the fabric of the universe itself. Though the aspect of nobility is still there with the Chaos Knight, but it's hardly the same as it is on the Imperial side. As opposed to a beautiful knightly stallion, the knights here are horrifying and unpredictable monstrosities, fueled in part by the agony of the memories of the ancestors trapped within. An invasion by a house of Chaos Knights is a horrifying thing. One might ask, how do knights enter the battlefield? Normally they can be deployed via dropships the standard way, but Imperial Knights can be deployed with a drop keep, a gigantic
drop cathedral
keep
drop cathedral
with
time.
towers and stuff.
Battle sister drop cathedral
Towards the surface like a drop pod and be slammed into the ground with an excessively thunderous crash. Then massive drawbridges slam down, banners unfurl, and huge horns play the song of their people as these lumbering robots charge out of their, again, drop keep to fight for the Imperium. So imagine what a warp-fueled version of this could look like.
If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
Chaos Knights have such a presence, the warp fluctuates in their tread. They bring doom, dread, and despair across the battlefield. Warp storms occur overhead, and psychic phenomenon cling to them. A Chaos Knight will arrive either in some warp-debased platform, or perhaps a portal itself, or climb out of a pool of blood. As the air gets heavy, the enemy feels a crippling sense of paranoia, and the sky begins to rain blood, acid, and God knows what else. The horrors of the warp have resulted in a dramatic change in technology in the favor of their forces. Though in practice, it is a horror beyond comprehension, their baseline desires don't seem that radical on paper. They are creative builders, working to innovate and improve technology while utilizing anything they can to accomplish their STEM goals. Looking at the dark forces of chaos and the Emperor now on his golden throne, humanity is fractured. The Emperor himself is the guiding light for warp travel for humanity, and in being that exists as a beacon for the entire species. Without him, things would get somehow worse. Therefore, he needs his protectors.
Okay, sounds like we're going into the next bit, which I assume is Custodes. So, with the Dark Mechanicum, we've got drop cathedrals. Drop cathedrals are really cool. And I think that they really should expand the Dark Mechanicum, and I'm okay with Dark Mechanicum / Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Knights faction, which could be like the Imperial Agents, but a similar mirror of that, which combines partly Vashtor, Negavolt cultists from the Blackstone Fortress game, give them a place within the Imperial Knights. No, Chaos Knights. Also, they already have a really cool detachment to combine them with Chaos cultists and have Chaos cultists wandering around. Do that. Make that happen. It's weird that Chaos Knights are a faction by themselves when they should have so many more things. Spicy Bandit, I can't really comment on like army lists and tactics right now since it's not the theme of this video. Sorry, another time. Right, well, let's go on to the Custodes.
Where a Thunder Warrior wasn't enough for his armies, and half of his Space Marines turned traitor, the Emperor's personal bodyguards are something else entirely. They are not the fallible Astartes, nor are they a nightmarish concoction of organs and indoctrination. They are built and gene-crafted. They're built different. With science bordering on magic. They number 10,000 strong, and each of them is a hero. They are the
Custodes.
Rare is the battle where an Emperor's custodians outnumber our foes. We are ever beset, surrounded upon all sides by heresy and foulness, just as is Terra itself. Yet, like the throne world, we stand resolute, indefatigable, indomitable. Let the enemy come. Let them darken the horizon with their numbers. Still, we will prevail. Though the Emperor sits rotting on the golden throne, his talons remain sharp. The talons of the Emperor was the name given to the most elite forces at his disposal. The left hand of his talents comes in the form of the Sisters of Silence, psychic blanks that scour the galaxy to claim souls to fuel the Astronomicon in the form of the Great Tide. 1,000 psychers sacrificed daily to keep the Emperor of Mankind alive, dragged into the black ships of the Silent Sisterhood. The right hand of the Emperor's protectorate, his golden bodyguards that serve him and only him. These are the Custodians. While the members of the Space Marines went out to take back the galaxy, the Legio Custodes stood back and kept a close watch over the Emperor himself. The Custodes are, in a sense, similar to Space Marines in that they are genetically modified super soldiers clad in power armor, but that is where the similarities stop. Their genetic makeup seems to be made from the Emperor himself, or at least something quite close. And the precision of their creation predates the development of the Space Marines and even the Primarchs. Unlike Space Marine recruitment, where there's a process undertaken when a subject is at least somewhat grown, a Custodian's process begins at infancy. The methods in which they are made are a secret, but what is known is that at the very beginning, each Custodian was made by the Emperor himself. Regardless of the bioalchemical process, the process is exceptionally long and grueling, and only a handful of selected aspirants make it to the end. Those that do are clad in the most regal and effective armor in the Imperium. Commonly, a Custodian is seen carrying a Guardian Spear, an utterly yoked up version of the staves the Praetorian Guards of the Emperor in Star Wars had. They are also clad with specific shields and blades. But the most interesting thing with all of their gear is that due to the meticulous and dedicated maintenance and preservation of their armor and gear, these items are the same ones they used 10,000 years ago. The Custodians do not age biologically, so some of the veterans in the Guard may be several thousand years old. And unlike the Space Marines, they fight entirely as a solo force. When a line of Custodians is holding back waves of enemies, they operate independently. There are no battle formations, there are no squad tactics. Each Custodian is the main character, trailed by serfs and servitors, tasked entirely to reload their weapons. They fight with a singular purpose, if not action. Groups of Custodians will dispatch enemy after enemy, their spears coming within inches of each other, but never close enough for a killing blow. Their strikes are intentionally defensive, allowing their opponents to attack 1 to 2 times before parrying and ending their lives. Each strike deflected is an opportunity to know their enemy more and learn from their patterns. They are truly the Emperor's bodyguards, masters of close combat, enemy knowledge, and reactions measured in milliseconds. Though the Custodians are a part of the Adeptus Terra, the members of the Guard only answer to their own leadership and the Emperor himself. The leader of the Custodes is known as the Captain General, and individual squads of Custodians are overseen by a shield captain. As their focus is on the Emperor, their command center is located within the Imperial Palace. The Tower of Hegemon serves as their primary base of operations, but there is a dedicated elite guard of Custodians known as the Companions that stands 300 strong by the Emperor's side. In total, the Custodes are 10,000 strong, and when a member retires, their name is added to the Hall of Name and vanish across the galaxy in a cloaked disguise to serve as eyes and ears for the Imperium. Despite their numbers and their strength, the members of the Custodes do not consider themselves to be soldiers or warriors in any way. They see themselves strictly as the guardians of the Emperor in all facets of his presence. This extends beyond the physical. Custodians believe they represent the guarding of the Emperor's ideals and philosophies too. Their gains are both physical and literary. They are the protectorates of everything the Emperor stood for, and in doing so, the Custodians are also artisans and scholars, in addition to being the Golden Guard of the Golden Throne. However, due to this nature of being protectorates, they have a very strong view when it comes to the Space Marines and the Primarchs. The Emperor himself had insinuated many times that once the galaxy was brought to heel, that there would be no need for the Space Marines anymore, and they were to go the same way that the Thunder Warriors went before them. The Custodes were meant to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this will, and are biologically designed not only to be able to take down Space Marine with ease, but to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Primarch as well. During the Heresy, the Custodians mused on how suspiciously easy it was to kill Chaos Space Marines, as if they were trained and made for that explicit purpose.
Cool. I'll pause it there. Because this is going on for quite a while, and I have things to talk about with the Custodes. So, how are the Custodes not wasted on Terra? Because keeping the Emperor safe is so important to keep the Astronomicon going, because if you have the Astronomicon going, you have warp travel. If you don't have warp travel, every system is basically isolated, and you don't have an empire at that point. You have a bunch of, I don't know, regions, separate areas. Yeah, and then you just have fighting into the Age of Strife again. Everyone's cut off by warp storms. So the you can still make Custodes, it's just that the very first Custodes were made by the Emperor himself. Leaving Terra is pretty new. It's basically only happened at the end of the 41st millennium, around the end of 7th edition, and then they're meant to guide the, what are they called? Primaris Marines into the galaxy to be introduced to their chapter and say, hey, this is with the Emperor's, you know, it's an Emperor's gift. The Emperor says it's fine. Honest, because the Custodes are here to be like the people who rubber stamp it. If a Custodes is here, it means the Emperor wants it to happen. There hasn't been much explanation or mention of the Sisters of Silence. I'm hoping we get that. If not, we'll talk about them. And they're all in golden armor at the moment. The first models made were topless with a cloak and a spear. That's what you see in the Emperor's text-to-speech series. That is correct for some of the models. That is where you get kitten. Do I play Chaos? I do indeed play Chaos. I have Chaos Space Marines, a lot of cultists, because I seem to like cultists. And what do I like? What's my favorite unit for each of the things? I don't have any great input on the Chaos Knights. I guess the War Dogs would be my favorite because they're a more reasonable size kind of knight. I would be okay if the size of knights in 40k was capped at War Dog. Leave the extra big knights for, well, like Imperialis and Titanicus and those sorts of games. That would be fine. So any of the War Dogs is fine. For Chaos Space Marines, I like Chosen the best. They feel like the elite Chaos Space Marine infantry that they should be, the veterans of a long war, something like that. So they are, in a way, better than regular Space Marines, only through experience. And they're raiders, renegade raiders types. They can advance and charge, and advance and shoot. They know how to fight, and they fight independently. So I think Chosen are the best. And when I've played in previous editions, I had a lot of cultists as soon as cultists came out. Well, there were chapter approved rules from 4th edition, 3rd edition. 3rd edition, you got 3-point cultist with a knife. Surprisingly overpowered for the points cost. And then the Alpha Legion could get them. And there were many ways to get cultists in your games. The Lost and the Damned book, which was part of the Eye of Terror. Well, Lost and the Damned army rules, which was in the Eye of Terror campaign book, which was also for army lists, which was the 13th Great Company of the Space Wolves, Ulthwi Dark Eldar, and the Cadians. So the Cadians had their own rules and units. There you had Psychers that were not entirely distrusted. You had your White Shields, your conscripts, as the first time conscripts were introduced. With Custodes, I have no great feelings about Custodes. They are very good at killing Chaos Space Marines, more than anything else. Because they wound them pretty easily, and they have the armor penetration to go through their armor. I guess regular Custodes with spears are my favorite Custodes unit. Occasionally Custodes would leave Terra. Great, yeah, I mean, they can do. It has been happening in the past. Mostly it's the nearby area, and then it's to get rid of an immediate threat to the Emperor. Not so much to Terra, not so much to the Imperium at large, mainly the Emperor. Oh, they attacked the Orks on several occasions. Cool, cool. The trim on the Thousand Suns. Yeah, all of the Chaos factions are just trim and spikes. You spray them one color, which is the armor, and then you paint all of the trim. Okay, let's continue with Custodes.
Constantine Valdor, one of the closest advisors of the Emperor, was asked if he ever disagreed with Big E on something. And he said once. with the formation of the Primarchs.
I feel I do my best, but they don't.
That's Logar.
Let me ask you a very fair question. What do you do successfully? Quickly.
Is that Drag Race? I assume that's Drag Race.
I hate that every time we're in Untucked, the conversations are about me.
And besides the trained distrust for Space Marines, the Custodians also have evidence for their distrust. The Horus Heresy saw half of the chapters fall to chaos and turn traitor against the Emperor. In the mind of a Custodian, the fact that half of the Space Marines fell before means that the other half can fall with ease. They are fully capable of wiping out literally any force put against them, and in a sense are the final representation of the golden age of Terra. However, they are forced to stand in silent and blind service to the Emperor and to the ill of the Imperium. And they, for 10,000 years, have stood vigil over the Imperium and have watched its rise and fall with the inability to do anything about it. While they do go out and fight some battles here and there, at the end of the day, the vastness of the Imperium means that the closest advisors to the Emperor himself are powerless to make any change. But goddamn, can they kill a Space Marine? For 100 years, I stood my watch amidst the somber shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis. I was still as a statue, but always ready, always attuned to dangers unseen. Days, months, years passed by in a frenzied blur beyond those walls, yet within, little moved and nothing changed. For 100 years, I did not but wait, yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat. For 100 years, I stood my watch, and as it ends, I can tell you this: patience is a weapon. Of course, a threat directly to Terra itself would appear to be something foolish. It's in the deepest parts of Imperial space and is one of the most defended bastions in the galaxy. You truly have to be foolhardy or insane to think that you can take on Terra itself.
Well, we've had a lot of people attacking Terra. We've had the War of the Beast, where the Orks attack Terra. We've had a Genestealer cult arriving in like the bowels of Terra, and I think it was like the North Pole, and then the Custodes went to get rid of it, and that's the Shadow Throne box and rules. And I mean, painting Death Guard, it's more like painting organs that are falling out. And I'm sure there was another time. Oh yeah, demons. When the Cicatrix Maledictum came across, a bunch of demons turned up on Terra. Like, ooh, we can't exterminate it's that, so we need to actually fight. And there's an extra fight, a very small fight, at the Imperial Palace. And like so many things in these last few editions of 40k, it's a reference to a refight of a fight that's already happened. Like the Fourth War of Armageddon is the First War of Armageddon again. This fight to get like the Lion's Gate is the Horus Heresy again a little bit. Are we going to get the Sisters of Silence mentioned?
However, one faction certainly got close. In the dark ages of the stars and in a river of misery, there is one faction having a cracking old time. The galaxy sees them as savages, yet they have already figured out the questions of the universe. Their numbers are uncountable, their technology incomprehensible, and yet their violence is so very green. I am, of course, talking about the...
Interesting. We have the British flag because, of course, the Orks are football hooligans. They are just lads that love their fast cars. They're boys that fancy a bit of banter. So we're not going to get any mention of the Sisters of Silence. The Null Maidens. They are anti-psychers. They have no soul and no presence in the warp. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, the Necrons have no fleshy body, they have their minds, most of them, some of them, actually very few of them, and they have no soul. I don't think. Maybe they do have a soul. They're missing, like, one of the three. It's always those three, mind, body, and soul. You can go without one of them and be totally fine. Around a Null Maiden or one of the Sisters of Silence, someone who is a Null, you feel ill, you have headaches, and psychers get even worse headaches and nosebleeds and can't use the warp powers and psychic powers. The Sisters of Silence, and also the Custodes, were very effective at the burning of Prospero. Morning, Zerota. Morning. So, let's do the Orks. And I wonder which quote he's going to have for the Orks.
The Orks are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge
this is the Eldar talk.
We Eldar who
Like
have
an Eldar
failed,
Farseer.
or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we saw answers to questions that an Orc wouldn't even bother to ask. We see a culture that is strong and despise it as crude. During the
From one of
war
the
in
earlier
heaven, the old
Orc
ones
codexes.
were doing their best to spawn as many combatants to their cause as possible by seeding the galaxy in a specialized sense. The Eldar were made to be a precise and tactical species to fight off the Catan and the Necrons, but another prominent species was made by them as well. The Krork were warriors clad in ornate armor with more dangerous weaponry. However, things changed, and these warriors changed, and the Krork are no more. They are now known as the boys, the lads, the mates, the orcs, 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 orcs. An orc in 40k looks like an orc in most other fantasy media. Hulking, warlike monstrosities with big teeth and worse attitudes. However, unlike the more Tolkien-esque forms of these creatures, the devastating nature of the orcs is in their biology. Unlike most species in the
I'd say the
galaxy, the
Warhammer
orcs
orc is
are actually
more
a type of fungus.
what we recognize as
This
orcs than the
fungus
Tolkien
itself
orc
comes
now.
in various forms. The small goblin-like Gretchen and Snotlings are a part of this fungal ecosystem as well, and also the squigs, which can be used for basically anything. But regardless of what is a part of the fungal
Specialized squigs.
system, all of them are born from spores that land on the ground and grow. As they travel around the galaxy, they drop spores literally everywhere, and then an orc dies, and they drop tons of fungal spores that allows for their numbers to be replenished over a period of time. Because of this, orcs are not only extremely prominent across the galaxy, but they are exceptionally resilient due to their growing cycle. Even if one orc lands on a planet, it will be nearly impossible to get rid of all of the orc presence unless the planet itself is completely destroyed. And even then, they might find a way to survive. Due to their fungal
Talk about
nature,
that.
orcs don't really stop growing. And the more long-lived an orc is, the bigger they get. And the more an orc fights, the bigger they get. Of course, since they're constantly getting into scraps, an orc's lifespan isn't necessarily that long, so the bigger orcs are harder to find. Though alongside this, however, they are a tribe-based species that is comprised of war bands, and the biggest and the strongest orc leads the war band known as the War Boss. At the bottom end of the orc tribal system are the Gretchens and the Snotlings. These members act as the servants and slaves of the orcs, and sometimes their actual ammunition, despite being a bit smarter and more cunning than their bigger brethren. Because in orc culture, the biggest is the boss. The smallest gets picked on and thrown around. Beyond the war bands and the tribes, orcs also belong to a specific clan. Tribes constantly shatter and rebuild, but the clans do not. They are, in a sense, a psychological state of being for any given orc, and gives an orc their specific character and traits. And to make things easier, these clans are also color-coded, so that's very easy to tell what orc does what. Though there are many clans out there, 6 of them are the most prominent and well-known. The Bad Moons are essentially the merchants and have a lot of money because their currency is teeth, and they grow teeth faster than any others. The Blood Axes are the stealth units, and by stealth it means like slightly more quiet than the others, and they have a love for LARPing as humies. Death Skulls are the scavengers, and the Goths are the close combat specialists. And on the 2 ends of the spectrum, we also have the tech-savvy Evil Sons, and the more traditionalist and tribal
speed freaks.
Snakebites. Another major facet of orcs is their religious beliefs. They believe in 2 gods, Gork and Mork. Gork is cunningly brutal, and Mork is brutally cunning. The difference between them, according to orcs, is that Mork hits you when you aren't looking, and Gork hits you when you are. There's a lot of confusion as to which one is which, and this results in a lot of infighting. In other species, this would be considered a sort of religious conflict, but for the orcs, it's just another excuse to fight. I have a quote here, but I don't really do a good orc voice.
Okay. Before we go into the next quote. So the orc stuff. I do have some orcs. Many orcs, including like the really old 2nd edition models. We got like squigger pults, zap guns, stuff that has legend rules so you can still use it. And I've been painting a killer can for what is going to be a very long time to pay off, I think, as a reference to a thing. But maybe some people will see a killer can at some point and be like, oh, that was referenced at this point. The orcs are difficult to get rid of because of their orc fungus and spores that spread everywhere and make more orcs. But fire works. Fire burns away the spores, stops the orcs from like spreading and growing. You can irradiate the earth, as the Adeptus Mechanicus sometimes does, and then you don't get orcs there. But if the orcs survive, it is not exterminatus time, the way it is for a more significant demon presence or the Tyranids. The Imperium can fight the orcs and win. The orcs are not some existential threat. So, in like Space Marine 1, they are the first but not super deadly enemy. Endemic problem, rather than a sudden epidemic freaky thing that's come out of nowhere like the Tyranids have. The orcs don't destroy planets. The orcs, yeah, they can breed on them and form a war from a planet, but planets taken by the orcs can be reclaimed. There are, if you do, there are likely to be generations of feral orcs, which are orcs without weapons, but that is why you have a PDF, a planetary defense force. They can keep the orc numbers in check. They can practice by fighting orcs. After the Second War for Armageddon, feral orcs survived in the jungles and attacked in the Third War, and also in the Fourth War. After the Third War, the Armageddon orc hunters learn by killing orcs, and so you have regiments, let's say battalions, that's an easier way, then it's not confusing between like the Death Korps of Krieg Regiment and the Armageddon Steel Legion Regiment, which are planetary groupings. Let's say battalions of orc hunters on Armageddon that learn how to do things there. Okay, we'll continue a bit more about orcs. Favorite orc unit? I do like the Squiggoths. Like the Legend Squiggoth. The Gargantuan Squiggoth is a bit too big, but a Squiggoth is nice. Rules are not amazing, but I like a Squiggoth. There's no Boar Boys anymore, but you just use War Bikers. Oh yeah, the Squig Hog Boys, but I don't like them as much. They're sort of feral orcs, but they're not. They're tech hunter orcs, which is odd. That's where you get these extra clans, like... They're not feral orcs, but they're a different thing. They're beast snagger boys. And you get the pirates, the freebooters, which are a clan, but not really a major clan. They're not one of the 6 major clans. Mad Boys, I like Mad Boys, but they don't exist every edition. Ard Boys, which are orcs with a 4+ save, but they don't exist every edition either. Regular Nobs, they're pretty good, because they're like Ard Boys, but they're Nobs, but I don't know about them having 2 wounds. Oh yeah, you have so many different kinds of feral orcs, and when there were rules for feral orcs, they were orcs with better shooting, because they would come out of their feral area, find where their ancestors were, find a load of guns, and then shoot guns. But they'd be able to shoot them better because they were like orc trappers and had a whole society. Regular orc boys are good. I like the idea of a regular orc boy. The basic infantry of a unit is usually... The basic infantry of a faction is usually what I like about the faction. If it represents them well enough, it's worth including. Which is where like Chaos Space means I prefer the Chosen, because they're a bit more elite and I want that more eliteness. Yeah, still have your Ard Boys from 4th edition. Good expansion, plus 4 more points to get a 4+ save. And you can have 100 of them. Yeah. Okay, let's continue with Orcs.
So I'm going to get my co-host of That's Ridiculous to read this one, and I'll try to lip sync it.
Oh, he's more cunning in a grot and more killy than a dread. The boys that follow me can't be beat. On Piscina, we jumped the Marine boys, and our boss pose was covered in the helmets we took from the dead-ends. We burned their port and killed their bosses, and left nothing but ruins behind. I'm Warlord Gezgul Mac Uruk-Drucker, and I speak with the word of the gods. We's gonna stomp the universe flat and kill anything what fights back. We's gonna do this 'cause we're orcs, and we was made to fight and win.
It's because this fucking sounds terrible. Fighting is the biggest aspect of orc
There's
culture,
your free
and
booters.
it's essentially their life's purpose. They are genetically hardwired to get into battles and scraps
Yeah,
with
if it's
enemies
predator
that can
rules, it has
feel
to fight
pain.
back.
The more they fight,
But
the
slaves.
bigger
Orcs
they
take
get.
slaves.
This combined with them
Gazgul
getting
takes
bigger
slaves.
over time means that some of the biggest and baddest orcs of all time have been notably gigantic. The Beast, as he was known, was about the size of an
think within
Imperial
multiple
knight.
beasts,
If an orc
the
runs
pixels
out
got
of
weird.
other enemies to fight, they will immediately start infighting to scratch the battle itch. For example, in The Warp, a planet exists where a band of orcs are in a constant state of war and battle, and have been for an improbably long amount of time, strictly because how much Khorne enjoys himself watching it. For some, being trapped in a perpetual war planet for all eternity would be a fate worse than death, but to the boys, this is heaven. In the event of a
Valhalla.
particularly big battle, a massive amount of tribes and war bands will unite under what is known as the Wa. The concept of a Wa covers a few bases. The first is the group aspect of the massive green tidal wave of orcs fighting for the same cause, the cause being the second base. But the most prominent aspect of the Wa is the psychic aspect of it. Remember how the old ones made the Eldar and all the Eldar are psychic? Well, the orcs are too, kinda, but just not as much. Only a little bit of it. And they often don't know how to use it and frankly don't care. But a huge gathering of orcs generates a psychic field that allows orcs to be more organized, dangerous, and dedicated to the war-based cause. However, the true extent of the psychic energy and its usage is relatively unknown, but that doesn't matter considering the outcome 90% of the time. In a similar sense, their ragtag technology and weaponry is also a mystery to most who encounter it purely because of that Wa energy. The technology the orcs use seem to be held together with duct tape and plastic glue, and crude doesn't even begin to describe it. Their guns seem to have an inordinate amount of ammunition and firepower, and they are seemingly able to put things together on the fly in the middle of combat. The Imperium is of the mind that the orcs' weapons and machinery only work due to their innate psychic ability, but realistically, orc gear hardly works in the first place. Weapons blow up in a Bugs Bunny-esque manner all the time,
like
and their war
Skaven,
buggies
sort
can
of.
collapse in the middle of battle. Just because it works
With the
a
oops not
handful of
working.
times does not mean it's an effective weapon. But this doesn't stop the orcs and their green tide. To really understand the power of the Wa energy, orcs can operate purely off of belief. Now, a misconception is that orcs believe something is real and it happens. But that isn't true, because that's just one orc. However, there's never one orc. There's normally a few billion orcs together, and if they all believe something is true, the warp will tend to respond with a positive green light. Sometimes. Do the
Yeah,
red
sometimes.
ones go faster? Well, with enough orcs, yeah. How does an orc buggy with an engine block that's just a boulder with vroom vroom written in chalk work? Who cares? Orcs breathing on a ship with a hull breach? Go ahead. An orc went back in time to kill
fun
a
orc
version
story.
of himself so he could have two of his favorite weapons. It is shenanigans. Because of their actions and aesthetic, the orcs tend to be presented in a comic relief sense in a lot of media.
And they're also horrifying.
Particularly the media from their perspective. They are bumbling and loud and goofy British football hooligans, and they say silly things and act in silly ways. But to the citizens of the Imperium, the orcs are far from funny. They are violent and irrational creatures that take humans for punching bags, slaves, or ultimately dinner. They have no moral compass and are violent and brutal killers that know nothing else. They are genetically designed to be a violent species that was capable of beating back the Necrons and the Catan. And if the orcs were ever able to unify under one banner, they would be utterly unstoppable. However, due to their
Gazgul is maybe
aggressive
trying.
nature, their organizational
Maybe.
skills are non-existent, and they tend to just beat each other up for the fun of it. All that exists in the mind of an orc is fighting, and nothing else. If they wipe out their enemies, they will inevitably wipe themselves out as well. They are a brutal Ouroboros doomed to an endless war cycle, but to an orc, why does it matter? If they fight and they win, they win. If they fight and they die, it was a good fight. Now that the Xenos armies are growing in strength and more are threatening the safety of the Imperium.
Okay, there we'll talk about Orks. So we have lots of... Yeah, Bricky's kind of right about the, like, Orks are too stupid to die part. It's more fandom memes that Orks make magic happens. An Orc thinks they're a tank, so they become a tank, or they're as tough as a tank. Things like that. Or not thinking about it makes them a tank. Subconsciously, there have to be enough Orcs, and then they can't control what happens, and don't know that it has happened, and can't repeat it so that it happens again. The Orcs are just having a good time because it's a galaxy of war and they're happy. They're kind of happy. You wouldn't want to be a regular boy because your life will be crawl out of spore hole, eat some squigs, get punched by a slightly bigger Orc, realize that because that Orc is bigger than you, unless you can punch some other Orc, you're not going to get bigger, which means you're always going to be at the like lower middle of the food chain. And then you get to fighting. And then there's loads of Orcs with you, which is great because you got the war energy, which gives you your courage. But if those boys die, you lose the courage as well. And Orcs are known to run away from fights if it's not a proper or fair fight. They don't run into guns just because they can. If there's not many Orcs left, they'll run until they mob up behind the lines, and then you get more Orcs. There are so many British jokes because the Orcs are like the punk, the football hooligans, stuff that was happening in 1980s Britain. You have to know about 1980s Britain to understand quite a few things about the Orcs. Although you can still get the idea of like fast cars and red ones go faster. The Orcs... The weird thing about the Orcs, is it Trazen the Infant? No, Imhotep the Stormlord. I think it's Imhotep the Stormlord. Really hates Orcs because they're so predictable, and yet when he tries to predict them, they become unpredictable, and it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, if they run away, they can always come back for another go. So I like the regular Orc boys. How many armies do I have? Like 8? It may be more. I've got Imperial Fist Space Marines, I've got Chaos Space Marines, I've got Death Watch now, I've got Genestealer Cult, I've got Battle Sisters, got Orks, Eldar, Dark Eldar. That might be all the... Tyranids, I've got quite a few Tyranids, which is why Final Day is pretty easy for me to do. Went with shortbread this time. I like shortbread. Good stuff. I forget how long live streams are, especially when I'm running them and talking the whole time, or almost all the whole time. We've still been on for like 2 hours nearly of me talking, which is most of a 40k game, except you don't stand and talk through all of a 40k game. You can sit down. I recommend sitting down sometimes. And also not talking the whole time, so otherwise your voice will die. Okay. Yeah, sometimes there's chairs you can rest and sit down and not have back pain.
They need to bring new methods in order to handle what they are currently facing.
The Emperor
is on the Golden Throne. Half the Space Marines are traitor, and they are beset from enemies within and without. So now the Lords on Terra must prepare for anything possible, and sometimes the impossible. For that, they take to the stars to explore and expand. They recruit assassins for priority eliminations. They train a galactic police force and a secret police to root out any and all heresy. The lesser known, yet most feared, I carry with me an inquisitorial seal. It is a small, unassuming object contained in a neat box of Pluvian obsidian. It is a modest thing, relatively plain, adorned with a single motif and a simple motto. Yet with this little object, I can sign the death warrant of an entire world and consign 1 billion souls to oblivion. Where the Imperium may see its justice dealt out by the hands of its armies and the gauntlets of its Astartes, when one needs eyes, ears, or both cut out, it looks to the agents of the Imperium. In a meta sense, these agents are a homogenized version of multiple factions from the original video 5 years ago. They comprise multiple aspects of the wide and all-encompassing armies of humanity and serve different roles. Whether it be the law enforcers of the Adepta Sororitas, the void-faring explorers of rogue traders, the invisible hand of the Assassinorum, or the hospitality of the Emperor's Inquisition, each has a part to play in the God Emperor's domain. Rogue traders are a great example of a somewhat undiscussed part of the Imperium: its nobility. While you may see the General Imperium as a totalitarian hellscape, because it is, this is...
Okay, yeah, it is an horrible totalitarian hellscape. But it's trying to keep itself... Yeah, you can't really justify it, but they try in setting just to keep it going, which is really difficult to do. It's interesting that he's called it the Imperial Agents, which is like the Codex grouping, rather than the Inquisition, the Arbites. We don't know what else he's going to do with the Assassins. Because it's a good grouping of the more autonomous Imperial forces. I think the Custodes, the Sisters of Silence, the Imperial Knights should also be here in the Games Workshop Codex. You are subscribed. Welcome to the channel. And then the Death Watch should be with the Space Marines. Maybe the Grey Knights could be with the Agents if they no longer work alone eliminating all witnesses, because they don't operate anything like a Space Marine chapter aside from having some similar vehicles like the Rhino, the Razorback, the Dreadnoughts, and the Land Raiders. So I wonder if he's going to mention the Death Watch here in this grouping. I do like Inquisitors. I've played like the roleplay games like Dark Heresy and Rogue Trader. And we're getting tabletop roleplay games, computer roleplay games of Rogue Trader, and soon there's going to be Dark Heresy coming out. I think that's next year. Then you can play it. They all exist in a weird place. I don't know if you can say the Death Watch belongs to the Inquisition. They sort of do. Yeah, but there's autonomous watch fortresses which may not operate in the same way. But then how does the Ordo Hereticus work? Because you can't just say the Battle Sisters are controlled by the Ordo Hereticus. At least not since the Witch Hunters Codex. My favourite Arbites, I guess the shotgun ones are fine. Otherwise, I like them with shields. Favourite assassin, maybe Vindicare, maybe the polymorphing Calidus assassin. Not so much Psycho Bomb Man. Not really the screamy run in and explode Eversaw assassin. But everyone likes the Caluxus assassin. I just like that kind of, we're messing with your minds and abilities and things. Of course, they're terrible on the tabletop. Generally, apart from their abilities, their reign of confusion, stuff like that. Moment you can ally a crew to get in the game. Interesting. Calidus assassin, I mean, they're the poster of Codex assassins, which was a nice idea. So you could also, where do you put the ecclesiarchy stuff? Like the Archoflagellants, like the Death Cult Assassins. Are they an agent of the Imperium, or are we sticking them with the Battle Sisters? In Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, you can have lots of assassins. Nice. In the lore, they're meant to be better equipped than regular Space Marines. I know their armor is better. I know they have far more Terminators, because they can have Terminators as battle line units. I don't know if their range of armory is better than Space Marines, because they haven't done anything with the models of the Grey Knights since 5th edition when they came out in plastic. No, we're not talking about Sisters just yet. What type of assassin killed Corvus? Do you mean... No, hang on. You mean the Night Haunter? That was a Calidus assassin. No. Yeah, the Stealthy Lady. Stealthy Lady was the one that did it. Yeah. Okay, let's see what he says about the agents of the Imperium, starting with the Rogue Traders.
Is to those under the boot of the nobles that run it. Rogue traders are a special kind of explorer,
Rogue trader
and their
again.
existence is extremely important to the function of the Imperium. A rogue trader is often an extremely special individual and is given the monumentally sized warrant of trade, allowing them to be given almost complete and utter freedom. Their task is simple: to chart the uncharted, learn the unlearned, and do whatever they can as an explorer and conquistador for those back on Terra. This information is, strictly speaking, invaluable. Whether a sector can be settled and colonies built, or precious rare resources exist on a floating asteroid can be mined, or a long-lost
brave new
Imperial world from
worlds.
the Age of Strife is recovered, it's all absolutely imperative. These rogue traders are faster than any other kind of Imperial armada, and therefore chart the direction of the entire society. Because of this, rogue traders are given a substantial amount of freedom. They have a ship and a crew of specialists, and can do things that would see any normal person shot. They can barter deals and even recruit Xenos races. They can explore
They're allowed to
areas
have opinions.
strictly prohibited, and they can earn a vast amount of wealth and riches in doing so. This tends to make rogue traders a very long lineage, and their heirs take up the mantle of their house. By being explorers, they become fabulously wealthy, and some can become quite the assholes while doing so. But truly, much like a night pilot, a rogue trader is an exceptionally rich individual who can back it up. They are master swordsmen, explorers, merchants, settlers, diplomats, and everything in between. They chart a course and they set the grounds, which means they will need someone to defend them, and the prime choice for that can be the Adepta Sororitas. Now, the Sororitas are cops, Judge Dredd style cops, as their inspiration clearly shows. Each planet will have their own members of local law enforcement, and most of them will settle many of the issues there and then. But when something requires a far more in-depth peacekeeping force, the Adepta Sororitas are brought in. Think local police versus the FBI. Arbitrators in the Sororitas tend to focus heavily on stopping crime before it can become too much of a threat. A criminal gang or heretical uprising can be subdued quickly and efficiently by utilizing them and dealing with soon-to-be criminals, as they put it. They will tap into communications, create spy networks, do interrogations and sabotage, anything that helps the good of the Imperium and the law they seek to preserve. The code of the Sororitas is laid out entirely via the Book of Judgment, a gigantic library of pages showing every single law from every single High Lord of Terra in the history of the Imperium. Because the Imperium is so vast, hundreds of laws are added every single day, and the library continues to grow with more and more laws and judgments. While Sororitas themselves carry a small version called the Book of Law on their person, this does end up creating a system where the unjustly prosecuted will never escape their prisons. If an innocent is wrongly convicted, any form of legal counsel will need to go through the Book of Judgment to help get you out. Often these prisoners require hundreds of years of litigation, in which they will eventually expire before they can be deemed wrongly convicted. Innocence is irrelevant. You have been judged guilty of transgressing the Lex Imperialis. Do not compound your guilt by evading punishment,
You are
as there
guilty
are
of
greater
wasting my
crimes,
time.
so are there greater sentences.
Yeah, so the Grey Knight's armor and combi bolt ammunition isn't made with the death of the blood of psychers. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be the blood of innocent people, which the Imperium is quite happy to kill. Because that was in a short story or a collection of stories about the Grey Knights, and it's like, oh yes, you see how the blood pools around one bit of bullet, and maybe they reuse it for a lot of different bullets. The next scene is a Grey Knight rapid firing their combi bolt into a demon. Like, here's 50 shots. I hope that it didn't take one person's death for each bullet. Yeah, rogue traders have spoken freely with the Primarchs, because the rogue traders have a warrant of trade, which is sort of like, the Emperor lets me do this, and allegedly it is sealed with a drop of the Emperor's blood. Allegedly. And that can be passed down generation to generation to keep a family, a lineage going. Would Scotland Yard be the equivalent of FBI for Brits? No, I mean, Scotland Yard is very much a central London thing. I don't know what it would be. MI5, maybe? Or is that spying? Yeah, it's internal spying. I don't know all of the British police forces and the way it works. The Arbitrator's content for Rogue Trade is good. Excellent. Excellent. Along with the stuff that's come out for
Of course, should something go out of the hands of the Adepta Sororitas, there is always the silent hand of the Officio Assassinorum to take their place. Naturally, the Imperium has assassins, and these assassins are sent to dispatch important figures that would not normally be handled by simply sending waves and waves of guardsmen at it. The Assassinorum is headed by the Grand Master of the Assassinorum, who is a High Lord of Terra and perhaps the shadiest individual in the entire galaxy. At his disposal are multiple types of assassins that all specialize in various things. Their training is extreme and absurd. Aspirant children are often subjected to Hunger Games style combat with each other on the ride over to the temple. Then you get low gravity, high pressure, traps, horrendous physical and mental strain, and everything in between. Then their minds are wiped completely and the real fun begins. An Imperial Assassin is nothing to mess around with. They are some of the fastest moving and hardest hitting things the Imperium has at hand and can go toe to toe with Space Marines depending on which temple they are from. Some, like the Vindicators, are master snipers who lie in wait for weeks, days, or even months just to get the perfect headshot from 5 kilometers away and disappear. The Custodes Temple are masters of shape-shifting and take a drug that allows them to transmute their body into whatever they see fit. A confidant of a target may be killed and they will take their place before killing their target outright. Or they could shift into a member of a Chaos Warband with symbols and flesh and all that to earn the trust of a cult leader before slitting their throat. The Caluxus Assassin is a psychic blank, a soulless mutation, making them appear as uneasy to normal humans and downright disgusting to psychers. When a powerful psycher is causing issues, this is who you send. Their specialized helmet enhances their already latent powers and will allow them to all but drain the souls from those they touch and their very body. It is an extreme weapon used when a direct form of pressure must be applied to an otherwise untouchable psyker. Now, if you need a direct pressure in a more literal way, the Eversor is for you. A drugged up comatose psychopath that is directly dropped on enemy lines and allowed to wreak havoc, killing anything and everything it sees in a blaze of movement and blood before it inevitably dies and causes a plasma explosion on its demise. There are other temples as well. The Vanus Temple, acting as sort of like a cyber hacker. The Venom Temple, specializing in poisons. But all in all, assassins move with their skin-tight body gloves with a speed unmatched and force unexpected. One of the best assassin novels puts a Vindicator Calidus and Vanus to infiltrate a night world, kill the High Monarch of the Night, who is permanently stuck in his giant robot knight, install a new ruler in his stead, and make sure nobody knows the Imperium did it. Their missions are insanity, and their tasks impossible, and they do it anyway. Thus is the power the Assassinorum wields. We do not determine the guilty, we do not decide the punishment. Have fun stories. We are merely the cold instrument of the Emperor's vengeance. There is no form of death unknown to us. There is no form of terror beyond from our means. There is no enemy outside our reach. We are the blade that hovers over the throat of the traitor. We are the bullet that awaits the heretic's skull. We are the poison in the throat of the alien. However, despite the prowess of the traitors, the police, and the assassins, there is one that stands above all. As the Imperium settled into its post-Emperor world, they needed a force to root out corruption wherever it could be found. But they needed specialized individuals who could do so. Men and women who would serve as detective and executioner. This new secret police would have unlimited authority, and they would be known as the Inquisition. Inquisitors of the Inquisition are one of the most feared individuals in all of the galaxy for the common members of humanity. Trained in the most difficult of conditions and mental hardening, they have long closed their minds to the compassions of those they deem guilty. Inquisitors are, for the most part, detectives, but they are detectives whose authority is unmatched and actions justified by the state itself, similar to the KGB, the Gestapo, the Stasi, the OVRA, but unlike those organizations, the Inquisition has far more authority and is one of the only types of individuals who can commit exterminatus, the term used for the utter and total destruction of a planet that is no longer deemed usable by the Imperium. While it is a very exciting word and a commonly notable thing done in Warhammer, Exterminatus is not actually used particularly often. It's a last resort entirely meant to stop the enemy from gaining a major foothold or spread even more corruption. Even with 1 million worlds, the wholesale slaughter of an entire planet is still a massive blow to the Imperium. Inquisitors range quite a bit, not just in how they operate, but also in their personalities. They are often main characters for a large amount of books, as detective noir is a great genre, and they can be the most stone-cold killer or a pragmatic and sympathetic individual depending on who they are. Radical Inquisitors may utilize methods unlike most of the Imperium, such as alien tech or even demon hosts, where Puritans stick close to the methods of the religious state and shun any deviations. They also specialize in various aspects, as the Inquisition has orders or ordos, such as Xenos for aliens, Malleus for demons, and Hereticus for you guessed it.
And even
truly,
more.
If you are a normal citizen of the Imperium, a person flashing an inquisitorial rosette in front of you may be one of the most terrifying moments of your entire life. It is the same as an FBI badge or a KGB member, except now you're in Warhammer. So their authority and tools are infinite. Agents of the Imperium are vast and offer a ton of different concepts to the world of Warhammer, and they continue to expand as the Emperor's descent into the Golden Throne has lasting effects on humanity. As time progressed, a few people seeing the Emperor as a deity made their voices louder, and over a few thousand years, worship of the Emperor was not only considered expected, but state mandated. This church will be known as the Ecclesiarchy.
Okay, we're getting into the Ecclesiarchy stuff now, so I assume we're heading towards the Battle Sisters. I don't know if I have a favorite temple. Yeah, Shapeshifty Lady may be the favorite temple. I'm also okay with Sniper Vindicator Assassins. Is Greyfax X Celestine a thing or just memes? I'm pretty sure it's mainly memes. We want it to happen. We like that it happens, but it's just memes based on interactions and like, they seem to really get each other even though they should hate each other. It's that enemies to lovers kind of thing, but we've only got as far as they work together as friends. The official lore is in the middle. The fandom wants them to be lovers. Yeah, it's just a meme. But it could be. The subtext is there, but I think we're so far past you only get like girl love stories in subtext. I think we now do it willingly and overtly in fiction. At least we should in this decade. Yes, maybe you could use me as a focus, Katarina. Stuff like that, yeah. Right, is that all I had to say about the Imperial agents? He hasn't mentioned the Death Watch, so there's no mention of Death Watch there. And he hasn't mentioned the Grey Knights. Maybe they're coming up a bit later, but they should have already been here. So maybe this every single faction isn't every single faction. It's most factions. Oh my god, they were co-workers. Enemies to lovers, but we're getting there. And, like, Celestine keeps dying and then going across the galaxy. So they're living apart at the moment. It's complicated. Right, let's see what we can do with the Ecclesiarchy.
And there were many who would look to the cardinal position and make desperate grabs at their power, leaving horrid effects on the populace. The Age of Apostasy was a time of reformation in the Imperium that saw its eventual change into an overtly religious empire. During this time, an all-female warrior cult to the Emperor called the Daughters of the Emperor were a bit more isolated from the wider Imperium. However, as the Ecclesiarchy began to take root, one Gouge Van Dyer became the High Lord of the Administratum and noticed these warriors and felt they could be useful to him. Gouge himself told these warriors that he was the voice of the Emperor himself and demanded they fire upon him to prove it. Having a little hidden force field that this warrior cult had never seen before, the bullet bounced off of him and showing him to be unharmed, truly blessed by the Emperor. This cult became known as the Brides of the Emperor. And
I mean, it was a Rosarius, and it was like one of his advisors willingly fired a last pistol at him. It wasn't like, sisters, shoot me now, and they were like, okay, multi-melter time, boom. It was one last pistol. But yes, all army, well, it's not just that they're all women, it's that they're all soldiers, and they're loyal to the Empire and could be made loyal to him.
Acted as his personal bodyguards
Like
and
the Imperial Knights.
aides.
Yeah.
However, Doge Van Dyer was a tyrant, and his horrendous reign spelled
Doge.
ruination for the wider Imperium, which made the Adeptus Custodes take notice. Despite an outright coup and revolt against him, the deadlock was getting steep as the brides of the Emperor's fierce combat skills kept him safe. One custodian made contact with the leader of the brides and brought her into the throne room of the Emperor himself. Nobody knows what transpired in that room, save for Alicia Dominica, the custodian, and the Emperor himself. However, she left the room with her hair bleached pure white from the interaction, marched her battle brides directly to Van Dyer himself and said, "You have committed the ultimate heresy. Not only have you turned your back on the Emperor and stepped from his light, you have profaned his name and almost destroyed everything he has striven to build. You have perverted and twisted the path he has laid for mankind to tread. As your decrees have stated, there can be no mercy for such a crime, no pity for such a criminal. I renounce your lordship. You walk in the darkness and cannot be allowed to live. Your sentence has been long overdue, and it is now time for you to die." Despite not having
I don't have time to die. I'm too busy, were his final words.
any time to die,
There it is.
Doge Van Dyer found some time to do so. With his head lopped clean from his body, the brides of the Emperor were no more, and the ecclesiarchy signed a document to stop Van Dyer's reign from happening again. They would no longer be allowed to have men under arms. Men.
Battle Sisters! Yeah, I like the six
The
matriarchs.
Adepta Sororitas, or
she's
commonly
screaming.
known as the Sisters of Battle, the nuns with guns, the fighting force of the church. Despite being the main militant faction, the Sisters of Battle, their organization actually is far more diverse than this and have many more nun-based roles for their members. They are organized by various orders with various specialties in mind, such as the non-militant orders like the Hospitaller, Dialogus, and Familius, including things like helping with surgical equipment and various other medical stuff, Duolingo, and a poli-sci degree. These orders are further separated into smaller orders in an almost Space Marine chapter sense, but tend to have more flexibility due to the nature of their work. And in addition to that, there is flexibility between the orders. It is not uncommon for a member of one of the more battle-hardened orders to switch to a more passive one once they sustain battlefield injuries or are a bit closer to retirement. As mentioned before, the Sisters of Battle are a part of their own separate organization, the Order's Militant, and feature the highest number of any given system. They are the official fighting force of the ecclesiarchy, and they specialize in wars of faith. Unlike the deployment of Astartes and Guardsmen, the Sisters of Battle are often deployed with members of the Inquisitorial Ordo Hereticus due to the holy war nature of their battles. The Sisters of Battle are suited up with their own form of specialized power armor that gives them almost like a Joan of Arc vibe to the battlefield. Though lacking the more true modifications of Space Marine's power armor, mainly to the fact that Sisters are, for the most part, regular humans, the power armor of a Sister of Battle almost matches the defensive power of an Astartes, but with added flexibility and versatility in exchange for strength. Some of the patterns of armor do allow for the enhancing of genetics, but this is far from the norm. This, combined with an arsenal of tanks and vehicles that have literal church organ rocket launchers on them, really brings across the holy war vibe in a gothic manner. Accompanying a Sister of Battle in the fields of war is the holy trinity of weaponry: the bolter, the flamer, and the melta. With such a simple loadout, the Sisters of Battle are able to bring down the glorious flames of the Emperor himself, and his holy light shines on them in other ways during a conflict. Hell, even their jump packs evoke angelic imagery as opposed to the more clunky jetpacks ones that Space Marines have. In times of great turmoil or impossibility, a living saint of the sororitas itself might appear on the battlefield surrounded by a litany of doves and cherubs, an almost comical scene of holy glory followed by literal hellfire. The Sisters are a fascinating organization because they take what is normally seen as a benevolent force and turn it on its head to be a horrifying method of war. Because the Sisters are so zealous, they are nigh impossible to persuade and almost never fall to chaos. In fact, any deviation from the Imperial faith may see you killed outright as you are deemed a heretic, and sometimes Sisters have even less patience than the Inquisition does. To the Adepta Sororitas, no punishment is too extreme for blasphemy and heretical behavior. Whether it's lobotomizing traitors to use as shock troops or attaching them physically to agonizing pain engines so they can die for the Emperor, anything goes. The most fascinating part of the Sisters, however, is their faith. We discussed how Orks often make things happen through belief because of their sheer number of them. The Sisters create miracles where they walk. They are not many psychers like Orks, but they are excessively devout and make up for that. Bullets barely miss targets they absolutely should hit. Guns jam, tanks malfunction, enemies slip and fall. The scene from Pulp Fiction is an accurate portrayal of what happens when the Sisters fight.
I'd knock that shit off if I was you.
Die, you motherfucker!
Oh, he's called like an orc, okay. I mean, that's just orc shooting. That's nothing special. Bolt pistol time. Bolt pistol.
One of the most prominent figures is the Triumph of St. Catherine, a literal open casket with the Saint of a Sister's Order held aloft by lobotomized servant cherubs and protected by bodyguards of the faithful.
Okay, let's talk more about the Battle Sisters now. So we have the Hospitaller, the Dialogus, who does translations of stuff. Maybe you can get like heretical text translated and they're faithful enough to not be influenced by it. And you have the Ordo Famulus, who trace genealogy and also do the creepy, yeah, this is a horrible dictatory thing of keeping the bloodlines pure. They approve of marriages and they perform diplomacy. The lobotomized cherubs, the lore around that has changed. They're no longer like babies or something weird. They're vat-grown creatures of their own making, designed to be censer bearers and supporters, and those little creepy dudes that you see in all the medieval artwork. The weird babies, the ones that urinate on people, except I don't know how they work with bodily functions. But they're not their own thing. There's nothing about feet. I'm pretty sure that's made up. The idea that Goj Vandile likes feet. No, that's going to be some memes. That's definitely some memes. Prior Nexus being well animated. The 9th edition trailer was really well animated. The Pariah Nexus animation I didn't find amazing. And so much of it was put under like 3 filters of dark and grey and then add some smoke so you can't quite see what's happening. Then it was brown after that. So a lot of the awkwardness of the animation was covered up. Some of it was good. I wasn't a massive fan of Pariah Nexus, which I know is an unpopular opinion. The Sisters models are some of the worst models to build. The arms are awkward. The bodies are not great. The Paragon warsuits are terrible. They're just some of the worst models to ever build. So they're not the best army to start with, and they're quite expensive. But we love our Sisters, and they have the Exorcist. Oh yeah, the Bene Gesserit is like an Ordo Famulus thing. Yeah, it's that. A lesser reference and more copied and pasted and slightly changed to sort of fit in the 40k setting. That's how Games Workshop does. Some of the Sisters grow attached to the cherubs. Well, yeah, they're kind of cute. There's also, what's the animation at the moment? Titanicus. That is also okay. It's very slow in the story, and it's like, here's 10 minutes of animation. Okay, you get nothing for a month. And they haven't figured out the jaws. When people open their mouths, they do these massive open-jawed thing. like their jaw is distending, and they haven't quite got that working. There's also the Knight animation, I think that was on Warhammer Plus, where it's about some knights that realize that, oh yeah, our planet was attacked by chaos, and rather than beating back the chaos, as in the stories, the High King made a deal with chaos, and now our bloodline's afflicted, and so some Chaos Knights, which may be from the same planet, came and tried to fight them. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going with sisters.
The devotion to the Emperor swells so strong that acts of faith are made manifest, and sometimes angels themselves. When the sisters go to war, they have thundering organs and litanies screeching out into the battlefield, hymns and songs. They rabble off prayers on their lips and burn holy fire across the area. They spray holy water down from horns atop their vehicles. It is a genuine
noise and
holy
music
war,
and
a procession of death. Saint Celestine is an undying deity, arriving precisely where she is needed
not
and
a
returning
deity.
to the fold after each death.
Saint.
When she dies, she sees a crying young girl atop a mountain of bones. Her bones after every one of her deaths. She climbs this mountain every time to help comfort this crying child and is rebirthed upon the battlefield. And
That's
one
the
day,
Living Saint book. It's
her
a good book.
deaths will create a mountain so large that even she will not be able to traverse it. Is she a demon of the God Emperor? Perhaps, but she'll be shot for saying so.
Yeah.
She is genuine
her girlfriend,
and
Greyfax.
literally faith made manifest. Some sisters may make a mistake, however, and find themselves questioning their faith, disobeying a command, and even leaving their order. These sisters are sent for reconditioning and are known as the Sisters Repentia. They generally face the front of the line head on and seek retribution and forgiveness from the Emperor himself. Though their actions were heretical, repentia on the fields of battle is an indication of an individual wanting to become forgiven. They run aloft with torture devices attached to their bodies and a chain sword the size of their body, completely armorless, to determine if this is how they die or if the Emperor will forgive them. Even the most famous champion of the sisters, that Saint Celestine, was a repentia. Even she questioned her faith. And if she can do it, so can you. Just don't run away again. They don't really do third chances. The Sisters of Battle are martyrdom-enthused zealots that create miracles in their tread. Their devotion is boundless and also a direct source of their power. A whole army of power-armored soldiers shooting, burning, and melting all in their path is bad enough, but it enters a whole different level when God is on your side. By bolter shell, flamer burst, and melta blast, the mutant, the heretic, and the traitor alike are cleansed of their sin of existence. So has it been for 5 millennia, so shall it be until the end of time. The Imperium devolving into wars of faith is to push its agenda further. Where the xenophobic nature of humanity was once strong, it has now been magnified, and there are plenty of aliens in this galaxy. 6,000 years prior to
hello, there's the AdMech. So maybe we're doing some AdMech stuff here, even though we've already done AdMech. There are wars of faith that also have fraternist militia. These are not soldiers, these are not conscripts, they are volunteers, who are then sort of organized, no, guided by minister and priests and onto ships, which are definitely not warships, and then they go to a war zone, and then they fight. If you run away as a repentia, that is your second chance. Your third chance doesn't really exist. That is a mortifier. That is where you're locked inside an Iron Maiden. It's an Iron Maiden on legs that runs towards the enemy. And if you're thinking of, do I want the AdMech or do I want sisters? You can see there the AdMech. It's a horde army with a couple of tanks in 40k. In 30k, it's a weird thing of like, we've got crazy robots and super lasers and all sorts. It's a horde army much closer to the Imperial Guard in 40k. So 30k AdMech is very different to 40k AdMech. If you're wanting one of the two armies, the Sisters is more easily collectible. The Sisters don't require as many models. The AdMech are kind of small and difficult to build. They do have Big Leggy Boy. stupid model, but yes, Leggy Boy is there. And I think my short video on Leggy Boy has become the top viewed video on my channel, I think, at this point, which is weird. Oh yeah, you could use Stilt Sniper as a Vindicator Assassin. Why ever not? I've used some Skitarii with my Genestealer Cult Neophytes, but we'll get to the Genestealer Cult as we go. Okay, what were we saying about the AdMech?
Current events of 40k, a planet was found by an AdMech exploration vessel. The life forms on the...
Oh, we're getting into the Tau. I see. Okay, so we'll talk a bit more about the Sisters. One of the most interesting things I find about the Sisters is that Our Martyred Lady wasn't originally called Our Martyred Lady. They were the Order of the Fiery Heart. Hence, on the Triumph of St. Catherine, one of the abilities is the Fiery Heart ability to make you move faster. After St. Catherine's death, it was renamed as the Order of Our Martyred Lady. They wear black robes over black armor. Then, after the Third War of Armageddon, which is like 998 of M41, that's very late in the timeline, they rebranded their color and they have red robes over black armor because there was a really big convent on Armageddon that was destroyed by the Orks. They didn't do well out of the Third War of Armageddon. Our Martyred Lady wanted to take this personally. Saint Catherine is not the main one of the 6 sisters, the 6 matriarchs. The Sisters 6. It's Dominica of the Ebon Chalice. I could try to equate it to like Space Marine Legions. Yeah, Our Martyred Lady is like the Ultramarines as the poster child. If you're thinking the first one, the most important one, definitely for the, oh, we have creepy secrets and we don't want people to know, the Ebon Chalice is like the Dark Angels. All of the Sisters 6 are either dead or missing. And they're like what Primarchs are at the Space Marines. They're patron saints to the major orders. Except they are very overtly worshipped. Yeah. Is that the white hair lady? Yes, Dominica was the white hair lady. And after whom, sort of, maybe that's the reason why lots of sisters dye their hair white. Are there any pink sisters of battle? I don't see why not. But otherwise, your color schemes are pretty limited. You have white armor with black robes is Sacred Rose. Red armor with black robes is Bloody Robes. Bloody Rose. Bloody Rose is red armor with black robes. Ebon Chalice is black armor with white robes. Martyred Lady is black on black, then black with red robes. The Argent Shroud is silver with red robes. And the one I'm missing is the Valorous Heart, which is black and black robes. They're very similar to what the Our Martyred Lady was. So you can just make your own, absolutely. There's no reason not to. There are minor orders, split-off orders, branching orders. You can totally make your own. 9th edition had rules to make your own one. It didn't really have law stuff, but it was like how the faction operates. Those can still be found online. If you look at Warpedia and then switch to 9th edition, you can find them. Yeah. So secrets, what secrets do the Sororitas hold? What was told to Dominica by the Emperor? Which might be, yeah, you need to get rid of Gouge Vandire, or it might be, hey, so in the end, Chaos is going to win, and I need you to deal with that because faith will bring me back. It could be anything like that. We don't know. You haven't heard of any of the other Sister 6? Yeah, so we got St. Catherine, St. Dominica, St. Mina of the Bloody Rose, St. Arabella of the White Rose? Sacred Rose. So Arabella is very calm. Mina is very bloodthirsty, loves to run at things with a chainsaw. That was her whole deal. And the Argent Shroud sister matriarch was one who was like, no matter how much suffering we go through, I'm not going to cry out, I'm not going to scream. Her sisters were being tortured in front of her. She was tortured, and she was like, I'm not going to say anything. And then other sisters were like, well, this is clearly being done not to torture me, but to torture our saint, so I'm going to stay quiet. And that was like, oh, got like vow of silence, and Valorous Heart as a whole, we don't want to get hurt. They're really cool, the 6 matriarchs. How they disappeared and died is also, like the Primarchs, maybe they can come back. Most of them won't and probably shouldn't. Like, I think people would actually be upset if Ferrus Manus came back, or Horus came back, or Sanguinius came back. These are meant to be dead Primarchs. Rogel Dawn has been at various times in the lore missing a hand and missing, dead or dead and missing a hand. We don't know. The Emperor told her 40k isn't real, we're on a tabletop game. Yeah. That could be it. That could be what the Ebon Chalice is hiding. Oh, I don't want to know that in the lore they can bring back First Manus. I mean, he's been cloned a bunch of times by Fulgrim to say, hey, so do you forgive me for, like, killing you? Also, I'm a massive snake with wings and a weird skin thing on my snake body. But no, let's not do that. Let's not have him come back. It's bad enough the Primarchs are back and it's some kind of... We're not seeing the end of days, we're seeing a renewal, which doesn't really fit with the 40k theme. Okay, let's move on.
Planet were seen
Tell us about
tools,
the Tau.
But they were still very primitive, so
You still
the planet
have,
was marked for
like, a
destruction
positive
to pave the way
outlook.
for the Imperial War Machine. However,
It was planned to have a hyperspace bypass run through it. I'm sure that'll be one of the lines. The AdMech wanted a hyperspace bypass, and that's why they were going to kill the Tau.
this was thrown off because of the extreme warp storm and that whole Doge Van Dyer thing. Flash forward to modern day, and an unknown but highly advanced vessel was shot down near an Imperial mining world, and the bodies on this vessel matched those life forms found on that primitive world. The native creatures on that planet were able to evolve rapidly
His
due to
music's
them
loud.
being
I can't do anything
unobstructed,
about that.
and their highly advanced gear pose a new threat to the Imperium. Advancing over these years with a remarkable
Thank you,
speed,
McFadden.
these are the new upstarts in the galaxy, looking to make a name for themselves, all in the name of the greater good. These are the
Tau, the greater good. He's going to do the greater good reference from Podcast, isn't he?
The alien is
You
not
have to.
intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him his ignorance. Seek to understand
this is the
his
Tau talking about the
differences
Imperium.
and acquaint him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. The early history of the Tau is chaotic at best.
Not
Due to
chaotic,
their
but
extreme
wrong-
speed run to
cool use
space
of words,
travel,
but
their
messy.
journey to the stars were overburdened with inner conflict. It wasn't until the appearance of the Ethereals that things began to settle. These Tau to the warring tribes marked their unification under one common belief: the greater good of the Tau Va.
What about the greater good?
There it is.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
This system is a caste-based system that seeks to unify and organize the Tau into an effective and successful society while working for their mutual benefit. These castes, in order from lowest to highest, are the Fire or Shas caste, which is soldiers, Earth/Theo, which is manufacturers and industrialists, the Water or Kor, being diplomats and traders, and the Air/Kor, being navy officers. Also, you have the Ethereal/Un, which is the lords and leaders of the Tau. Now, unlike the paths of the Eldar, the Tau don't get any say into which caste they're in. It's determined upon birth due to inheritance from a parent. Trying to deviate from your caste or trying to do tasks or even use tools assigned to another caste is a grievous crime against the Ethereals, and those guilty of this crime tend to be sent to re-education camps, which sounds not so greater good, but a greater good than the good that the Imperium sees as greater. The guidance
It's
of the
relative
greater
to the
good
Imperium,
also encourages the
who are
growth
relative
of
to
the
chaos.
Empire through the absorption of other races and cultures. The expansion of the Tau Empire is split into spheres of time. So far, there have been 5 spheres of expansion, with a 6th one being planned in the current timeline. The first
Yeah, the spheres of expansion are kind of a weird thing. Like, the first one is the surrounding areas around Tau, which is where you get the Kroot. Second one is even further out, which is where you get the Vespid. I think they're second. Third is where the very first book of the Tau, the first codex, stopped. Like, okay, we have 3 spheres of expansion. Then it's gone strange. It's like, okay, we've got the 4th sphere is the doomed one, which is where they went through the warp, and it's like, oh, yeah, they all died, but maybe got like 2 planets. It's like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, that counts. 5th sphere of expansion is in that Chalnath sector where the Tau have popped over to another area beyond the Cicatrix Maledictum to the other side of the galaxy. So you can play in lots of different areas. It's not like, oh yeah, the Tau would only ever fight the Orks, because their first fighting was against the Orks. They're like, okay, we'll assimilate all these different races. We'll try with the Orks and be diplomatic with the Orks. They killed and ate the diplomats. Okay, send more diplomats, but friendlier and less edible. Oh no, it went bad. So they had a big fight against the Orks and had to kill all the Orks. And that's how Farsight started with his stuff. Yeah, there's also the Let's Send Diplomats to the Drukhari, which is in the Dark Eldar 6th edition book, maybe 5th edition codex. Which was, they did a cultural exchange, which was like some Drukhari live with the Tau for a bit, some Tau go with the Drukhari, and then they were turned into horrible wrecks and grotesques and stuff. Yeah, that gets messy. Didn't they also try that with the Tyranids? I'm sure they would have. There would be some watercast diplomat that wants to make a name for himself by being friendly with some new alien race, and it was High Fleet Gorgon, and it did very bad things to the Tau. And then the Imperium had like a part of its fleet, which was meant to be part of the Damocles War, popped up over there. It was like, oh yeah, we're meant to fight each other, but Tyranids are a worse threat. So they weirdly teamed up to fight the Tyranids. Standard Drukhari prank. Yeah. Now the Tau are not the good guys, they just may seem it compared to the Imperium. Because, yeah, if you run away from the Imperium, you can join the Tau, but it's still not great. I don't think they're like space communism. You could think of it more like the British Empire or the USSR's imperial side or United States expansionism. They are manifesting some destiny across the stars. They are, you know, every country thinks that it has some special trait that makes it great, that whatever bad thing happened in the exact same circumstances to every other nation won't happen to them because they're built different culturally or psychologically or physically in some way, and it's just not true. The Tau did a lot of genocides along the way. Then they found that some aliens can join. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Vespid kind of mind-controlled to be with them. Kroot are impoverished. But they can join the Tau as equals, with the Tau being the first among the equals. Maybe rather than Space NATO, think of it Space Delian League. If you know your Greek history, that's where with the Peloponnesian War, the Spartans were leading the Peloponnesians, and Athens was the other side. So they were saying, okay, yeah, a bit like NATO, I suppose, with them being America. Give us money, said Athens to all of these people in the Delian League, to defend you. We will build up our military with your money. And that seemed like a good idea. And then the Athenians were like, so we're going to just start popping around all of the different places, all the islands, and they're like, hey, nice city you've got here. Everyone's paid for this army. You're going to pay for this army as well. This army that's kicking your face in. Great, welcome to the Delian League. You're now protected from the Spartans. You're not protected from the Athenians. Yeah, because of the way history is written, which isn't always by the victor, the Athenians lost the Peloponnesian War, but wrote history, so it's considered a war where the good guys lost. Weird one. Okay, we'll have more Bricky for now.
The first two spheres saw the Tau move beyond their homeworld and settle new planetary systems, known as seps, and absorb multiple races into their ranks. But the third sphere is where we see the Tau interact with the Imperium for the first time, which went about as well as you think it did. The Tau, as mentioned before, are highly advanced compared to some
this is
of
where
the
they
other
get hit by a
species
shovel.
in the
That's a good
galaxy,
Warhammer
and
plus.
their military tactics are highly precise. Instead of the Imperial methodology of throwing everything at a problem, the Tau carefully assess any battle and take as many precautions as possible. Commonly, you will see a Tau warrior in a heavily modified battle suit with advanced targeting systems. The Tau do not often consider close combat to be something very effective, so they don't really put put much stock into it. Their Gundam-like battlesuits have a multitude of functionality, ranging from overwhelming firepower to stealth-based combat, and since they're an upstart species with a bit of technical flair, they have plenty of AI drones that help them in the field of battle. In addition to this, the Tau are also joined in the field of battle by some of the species that have been absorbed into the fold of the greater good. These auxiliaries often employ tactics that the Tau are unable to do on their end, such as the brute force and almost primitive nature of the Kroot, combined with the Geonosian aerial shock attack style of the Vespids. But the Tau assimilate more and more species with time, including even some humans who wish to break off from the Imperium for pick a reason. The aesthetic.
Yeah. So my favorite unit with the Tau has got to be the Auxiliaries. I mean, I don't much care for the battlesuits. Tau Fire Warriors are fine. I like the Guervesa, which are humans that are in the Tau. Because used to be that you could have a unit of 6 was your Fire Warrior squad. You could also have like an Imperial Guard special weapon team, which was 3 Imperial Guardsmen or Tau Guardsmen humans with rifles, the Tau rifle, and 3 laser guns. That was the whole thing. Space Warsaw Pact? Yeah, there's lots of analogies you could use. So many options. Were Vespids made before Star Wars Episode 2? No, I'm pretty sure that the Tau came out in like 2004. They were late in 3rd edition or like early 4th edition. So Star Wars Episode 1 and 2 would already be out because Star Wars Episode 1 was 1999? Yeah. So it would be Geonosians first, then the Vespids. Yeah, I like the Book of Martyrs. Book of Martyrs is a good book with the Battle Sisters. It's 3 stories. One is Sisters Hospitaller against Tyranids. One is a sister that's captured talking about the Tau and fighting the Tau. And hey, yeah, we've got Archoflagellants. We've got Sister Repentia hiding in the swamp. So when Bricky's saying they have to run head on into the enemy, they can also hide. You can use them in a normal tactical thing. You don't have to run screaming at the enemy in the Penitent Host detachment. You can hide behind buildings and then charge. Halo's another option. There's a lot of places Games Workshop has borrowed from.
The aesthetic of the Tau also leans a bit more into the East Asian sci-fi aesthetics. The large mech suits definitely evoke that Gundam look, but the general garb of their higher-ups kind of create that motif, and they often have accents in the games that they are in. But while Tau are looked at as Gundam mech faction by some, others enjoy them for the full coalition of aliens. One of my favorite images in Warhammer is this official artwork by Games Workshop. Now, not a single one of these aliens are a faction in Warhammer, and yet they all are different species that do exist in this universe. The Milky Way galaxy is vast, and while the Imperium and many others exterminate what they can find, the Tau will assimilate those that can be assimilated. The Kroot and Vespids we already discussed, and the humans and also Votann will join them at times, but you also have the Galg, the Nikasar, the Vorg, the Thraxian, the Terrellian, Greet, Domati, and many.
I mean, the Nikazao are psychic owlbears. That's the best description of them. They're owlbears from D&D, but psychers.
The others. Some of these are just one-off lines, and some are major players in the civilization. The Nikasar are, for lack of a better word, gigantic psychic polar bears with bird-like faces. The Tau have psychic bears. And the fact I haven't seen this is a crime. The Tau as a culture are generally marred by the various issues that an advanced civilization would have in an unadvanced galaxy. They do not travel through the warp because of the insane dangers, but instead use a more classic FTL jump. However, because they aren't going through hell, it makes them a lot slower than many other races. The Imperium might surf through hell and lose a few ships, but they will get there first. Often they will take enormous cannons and weaponry and defeat their foes before they can even close the gap. One of their light walkers carried a weapon of lethal effect. It fired a form of ultra-high velocity projectile. I saw one of our tanks after being hit by it. There was a small hole punched in either flank. One, the projectile's entry point, the other its exit. The tiny munition had passed through the vehicle with such speed that everything within the hole not welded down had been sucked out through the exit hole, including the crew. We never identified their bodies, for all that remained of them was a red stain upon the ground, extending some 20 meters from the wreck. The fascination of the Tau is that in any other modern day world, their society would be horrid. Rigid caste systems, corruption, and politicking ethereals, and basically it's the greater good or nothing at all. But in the world of Warhammer, the simple fact that humans are accepted into their sphere should they please already puts them far and above the other races that would murder or eat them. But despite this, the existential dread that is the Tau Empire is ever so apparent. Despite being hyper advanced and welcoming a coalition of aliens, they are the upstarts, and they are painfully outnumbered on all sides. Almost any other faction in the universe, given the right amount of force, can wipe out the Tau Empire from existence. They themselves might not be perfect, but their slight glimmer of hope is exactly that, a glimmer in a dark and crushing galaxy. Of course, nobody dares take the attempt to destroy the Tau Empire, because doing so is an enormous amount of resources, and for the same reason why you don't full send your whole army to one person in a commander game of Magic. You open yourself up to player 2 and 3. But not to say it won't be a struggle. The Tau Empire, when prepared, are a vicious fighting force who might delete your formation before you even see them. But they lack numbers, and in the dark corners of the galaxy, something is coming that is entirely numbers.
Ooh, we're doing the Tyranids before the Genestealer Cult by the look of it. Yeah. The Hussars, winged Hussars, are Polish. It's like medium cavalry with long spears and feathers. Really fun. Well, cool. There's a Sabaton song about when the winged Hussars arrived. So the other races in the galaxy don't like the Tau, but they don't take them out because of the resource cost. Like, if the Imperium attacks again, which they did in the Damocles War, which went well for the Tau, it was against the generally Imperium. Knight Commander Pask was there, who has a Lehman Russ, and the White Scars and Raven Guard. And the Raven Guard chapter master was killed, and that's why Shrike is now the chapter master of the Raven Guard. A lot of resources were put into it. Didn't go great for the Imperium. Then other threats came up and they had to leave. The Tau expanded a bit. Then the Imperium came back and were like, okay, heavy bombard that planet. Millions of Tau die. Release 4 assassins and we'll try and kill as many of the high commanders we can. And that's where Aun Var is killed. So if the Imperium were to attack the Tau Empire again, yes, they could absolutely beat them with like a big crusade. But what about further up north, where the Necrons are expanding the Pariah Nexus? What about the Tyranid hive fleets of the 4th Tyrannic War? One plague fleet of the Death Guard cannot beat them. One hive fleet of the Tyranids alone cannot beat them. Hive fleet Gorgon was destroyed. Mostly, you can still play it, but mostly. But if the galaxy was the Imperium and the Tau would stand no chance. Okay, so now we move on to the Tyranids. Well, we'll see what he says about the Tyranids before I start talking about Tyranids.
There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale, and all we can try to do is stop the swarms of bioengineer monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salve our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us at all, it must only know us as prey. The conflicts of Warhammer 40k are chaotic enough with the sheer volume of violence that exists in the confines of the Milky Way. However, there is a threat to the galaxy that extends beyond our known galaxy that is creeping ever closer and cannot be negotiated with. What drew them to the galaxy is unclear. It may have been the light of the Astronomicon itself, like a moth to a flame. It could have been a Xenos device detonated in the Horus Heresy. It could have been that they were done eating the Andromeda galaxy and they have come to take ours. Or they might be running from something far, far worse. Regardless of the why, the where when it came to the first official contact with these creatures was the planet of Tyran. This is the site where the Imperium encountered a fleet of these creatures before being utterly torn to shreds. Thus, these creatures became known as the Tyranids. There's plenty of evidence that the Tyranids have been lurking in our galaxy for years beforehand, but this was the first true instance of their presence being fully known. Unlike other creatures in the...
Oh yeah, that's that good artwork. So that's Tyranids fighting Orks. And that Tyranid warrior is not really keeping its organs inside itself, but it does have a beak in its lower thorax. They're fun models. And they're holding bone swords, which they should actually hold. At that time, they did hold them in their hands rather than them being like part of their hand. Then you play the Space Marine 2 game, you kick a Tyranid warrior and it drops the bone swords. Like they are things that it picks up and walks with, which it shouldn't be, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, so the Tyranids, the first Hive Fleet to arrive was Hive Fleet Tiamat, which is building something and protecting 5 worlds, because, you know, Tiamat from Dungeons & Dragons has 5 heads. It's that. There's also the idea of Genestealers being the first things to arrive, and, well, Genestealers weren't recognized as part of the Tyranids, and the Genestealers were in first edition of 40k, because it was a weird, you know, rogue trader times. So it's just, hey, what if we had xenomorphs of our own? But then they decided, okay, Genestealers are part of the Tyranids and also the Genestealer cult. There are rumors that on Fenris, the Krakens are somehow descended from the Tyranids, or the Katachan Devils on Katachan are related to the Tyranids. But it's in the year 745 that Behemoth enters the galaxy, attacks Tyran, and then almost wipes out the Emperor's Scythes chapter. The way that the Tyranids got there, they haven't eaten the Andromeda Galaxy, it's still there in the sky. They haven't... The idea that they're running from something else is very much a fan rumor. It gets spread as like, oh, what if they're doing? But no, they've taken the time to like attack the galaxy in one area, find that 2 of their hive fleets, major hive fleets, are destroyed, and then move underneath, and then Leviathan comes up from below. They're thinking tactics. They're not necessarily numberless. They haven't entirely surrounded the galaxy like Jaws around the galaxy, and then they're just sticking their tongue into it. But I see how that's like a horrifying horror theory, which plays into like the Lovecraftian, it's beyond anything you can know. You can't imagine what the Tyranids are like. They're super weird and scary. The thing on Fenris was a demon? No, if you think like the Krakens that live in the ocean, then that seems more Tyranidy. Yeah. So the main thing that drew the Tyranids to the galaxy was the Pharaon device, something used in the Horus Heresy so that some survivors of the Dropsite Massacre could contact the Emperor. I think that was the time. I think that's roughly the story behind it. And it's this massive psychic beacon of alien design, and it flashed, and outside of the galaxy, something that was sleeping stirred, saw the light, and moved very slowly towards it, because the Tyranids don't move in the warp. So they can't just bloop around the galaxy the way the Imperium can, the way Orks can. Orks can get everywhere. Orks love fighting. We have the Octarius War, which ended in the last edition with the Tyranids victorious. But with a ring of like dead worlds and fortified Imperial worlds beyond that. So they can't really expand out of there, but Hive Fleet Leviathan won. Whereas they didn't at Baal, and now the 4th Tyrannic War is Hive Fleet Leviathan again, but on the other side of the galaxy. So it takes the Tyranids a long time to go anywhere. But then the Shadow and the Warp stops their prey from getting away. So that's the Horus Heresy idea is the closest we have to canon. Yeah.
Realm of 40k that can be talked to, captured, or negotiated with, the Tyranids are unable to be reasoned with. They are, at their core, animals, but not the fun kind of animals. They are the xenomorphs of 40k, and boy are they hungry. They are instinctively hardwired to either kill or be killed, and they are an unrelenting force due to this. However, just because they don't talk outwardly doesn't mean they don't communicate with one another. The true horror of the Tyranids is found in their driving force, the hive mind.
3, 2, 1. Hot in here by Nelly.
That's what I guessed.
You see, the Tyranids are a collective consciousness that are all connected to a singular embodiment of psychic power that is utterly incomprehensible to the human mind. To keep this connection there, the Tyranids on the field of battle are followed around by Synapse creatures, essentially serving as their Bluetooth connection to the greater hive mind. This allows them to send and receive information about the battle they're in, and it also allows them to adapt to certain situations based off of the information gained.
So you have, it's the bigger one, not always the bigger ones, because there you got like a Carnifex. You got a Carnifex in front, which isn't a Synapse creature, but behind it, in the left, underneath that flying gargoyle thing, that could be a hive tyrant. The bigger ones, like the Orks, are in charge. And it's a general, like, Imperial Guard officer structure. You have Tyranid warriors leading gaunts. Then you have the hive tyrants leading Tyranid warriors. Then above that you have, well, the Norn Queen and things. Dominatrix. Big creatures like that. My favourite hive fleet. I kind of like Behemoth because of it being the first one. I'm okay with Kraken. It doesn't do anything too special. I mean, is Kraken the Horde one? So I kind of like that. Leviathan is fine for adapting to just be whatever you want. Not too fussed about Gorgon. I like the paint scheme of brown and green, orange, mainly brown. Hive Fleet Behemoth is dark red and dark blue. Hive Fleet Kraken is a lighter red and like a creamy colour. And then Leviathan is creamy colour and purple. Mainly. But of course, you can be whatever you want. You can put them in camouflage patterned and then say, yeah, this is Hive Fleet Behemoth. But they like the big monsters. So I like all of the Hive Fleets, generally. Don't like Kronos so much. Maybe we'll get to Kronos. Like the lesser Hive Fleets I'm not super fussed about.
Depending on the enemy, the Swarm might be able to develop a new weapon or new tactics so they can get the upper hand. When the Synapse connection is cut, they are unable to essentially form a save state and are stranded. The sheer power of the hive mind presence pours from each Tyranid in such a manner that it causes a distortion in the warp itself. A hive fleet's arrival can cause a dark shadow the size of several light years, coined the shadow in the warp. This shadow prevents any usage of the warp, or at least makes it exceptionally difficult. Communications shut down due to astropaths being unable to talk. Ships cannot freely enter the warp, and even creatures with a warp sensitivity feel an immense dread due to it. It causes everything to just kind of sit dead, like at a buffet counter waiting for the afternoon meal rush. The Tyranids meander through the galaxy in these gigantic hive fleets that are fueled by bioships, and these ships contain birthing pools for Tyranid armies and more ships. Everything about the Tyranids is organic, and to fuel this war machine, the Tyranids consume any and all biomass they come across and absorb it into their respective hive. From the ground to literally the air, the Tyranids strip a planet to a lifeless and uninhabitable hulk. As a means to curb the advancement of the Tyranids, the Imperium has been known to preemptively exterminatus worlds in the path of a hive fleet so that they have less biomass to consume in an attempt to starve them. The Halo method, literally scorched earth tactics by taking everything out of the freezer and lighting it on fire. Outside of the obvious threat and adaptive and unreasonable enemy posed on the field of battle, the most dangerous aspect of the Tyranids comes in the form of their general unpredictability. The Tyranids are external to the Milky Way galaxy itself, and it's unknown where they truly hail from. However, their arrival in the Milky Way is seemingly random and in 3D space, implying quite heavily that Tyranids have the galaxy surrounded in some kind of way. Due to this, you will sometimes see instances of species engaged in a separate conflict, both agree to a temporary truce in order to take out a Tyranid threat. Because regardless of the stakes at hand, The existence of the Tyranids marks the heat death of the galaxy itself, and all the factions can ultimately agree that the Tyranids themselves act as the biggest threat to all of them. The Tyranid race is truly an unknowable horde and pulls from that horror of the unknown. They, as a faction, are not ones with a large amount of general lore because their entire race is told from the point of view of those being eaten by them. Tyranids are called that due to the planet Tyran they destroyed, as we mentioned earlier, and their names are often phrases given to them by their victims: the Swarm Lord, Old One-Eye, the Death Leaper, Von Ryan's Leapers, and so on. Despite the inability to even perceive the vast psychic hive mind of the Tyranids, they are fiercely intelligent. Special poisons and items designed to counter them are adapted in a matter of hours. If you bring light infantry, they create heavy monsters. If you brought weapon emplacements, they spawn little creatures to scour your vents and sewers. Many of you enjoyed the Servitor excerpt from part 1, and so bear with me as I provide you another very long account of a planetary governor whose planet is in the final death throes of the Tyranid menace. This starts about halfway through. It has been many weeks since a handful of us escaped the sinking of the Seafort Divine Anchor via airlift. We have escaped in this manner because the Tyranids had overwhelmed so much of our world, they no longer appeared to need to continue spawning beasts for aerial supremacy. I shall never forget what I saw from my craft's portholes. Alien biostructures dominated Huto's surface. Gigantic lumpen barnacles pumped out clouds of matter to further poison the planet alongside pulsating brain-like nodes that resembled lethal fungi.
Gotta change the whole planet.
Immense capillary towers stretched high into the poisoned sky. The glistening chitin coating their flanks crawled over by chains of lesser beasts fulfilling some sick alien purpose I cannot know. Digestion pools spread for miles, replacing our once great lakes with reservoirs of bubbling biomatter. Tides of creatures bloated with consumed flesh vomited their guts into the pools or threw themselves entirely into the billowous liquid. Amidst the seas of feeder beasts consuming all in their path, we would every so often see an explosion or a burst of fire. Were these heroic final stands by other survivors, or merely abandoned ordnance detonating at random? I will never know. I cannot rejoice in the deaths they inflicted. The biomatter of the dead Xenos was surely recycled by the Xenos regardless in no time at all. Our aircraft ran out of fuel a week ago. Now I stand in the snow, not far from the peak of Mont Saint Hilaire. I am the only one left that I know.
I was going to stop it there, but there's more. Okay, let's finish the quote.
Those with me perished. The slightest cut on a mountain rock resulted in an immediate infection that left the pilot screaming in agony. Her co-pilot fired the shot that ended her torture, and my senior aide threw himself from a ledge, the reality that there was no escape hitting him. I have no idea what happened to my chief medicae. Others were slain by lone beasts the rest of us were unable to kill or drive away. A justly deserved end will soon be mine. I have failed on every possible level. We were not even able to send word. An alien disease has me within its grasp. My limbs are numb, my tongue is dry as sand, my head throbs. Even at these chilled heights, I sweat profusely. From here where I sit, I can see the final death unfold on the planet entrusted to me. Before me is the Radarin Ocean. The water level is visibly dropping, hour by hour. They are even taking our seas. There are enormous beasts with great, slowly flapping wings and immense open maws moving through the sky. I may be at high altitude, but the air is thinner here than it should be. I know enough of mountaineering to know that. They will not even leave our air. There is an isthmus I can see, upon which is sat one of the Xenos capillary towers. Now I believe I can tell what they are truly for. High up, foul Xenos bioships cling to their flanks like twisted calves at their mother's udders. They are feasting, I am sure, hungrily filling themselves to burst on the hideous gruels that are what remains of my people. I have witnessed the planet's death from sinister start to hideous conclusion. I see the power of our foe, and though I have shown boundless weakness these past months, I do not see how we could ever have won.
Okay, Tyranids. So with the previous Tyrannic wars, especially the third Tyrannic war, second Tyrannic war, there was the idea of, okay, we destroy planets before the Tyranids get to them, we do Scorched Earth, there's no biofuel for them, and only certain worlds which have the power to resist, we leave there, and we defeat the Tyranids there, break them upon like Macragge, for example, or Craftworld Yandon, if you want to get the Eldar involved. With the fourth Tyrannic war, they're taking less of this Inquisitor equipment approach, especially the thing that he did around the Octarius zone sector, where it was like, okay, we're just going to blow up these worlds, don't leave anything for the Tyranids, and then pull back to these fortified worlds beyond. That has sort of worked, but not worked that well. The law in the fourth Tyrannic war is, we know that where the Tyranids are, we know that they're coming. Evidently that quote is like a weird exception. When the Tyranids have like committed their forces, they've got everything, they're building their towers, they're going to put the biomatter into their ships. That is when the Inquisition blows up the planet before digestion truly begins, so that every single world is some resource cost to the Tyranids, and then the Tyranids have to move on. I think Bricky also said that if you have light infantry, the Tyranids will spawn giant monsters. You don't do that, no. If the enemy has light infantry, you want heavy infantry, slightly heavier infantry, or light cavalry. Fast things that are faster than them. Because Roman light infantry was the counter to Carthaginian elephants, the big monsters of the time. Is there anything else?
This is any sort of good news. It seems that one thing that might be an inadvertent repellent effect on the Tyranids is chaos. Chaos and chaotic energies offer no nourishment to the Tyranids. They cannot eat that. And the presence of rifts and warp storms work as a means to starve out the Tyranid fleet. The Tyranids, of course, are attempting to adapt to this, but it seems that even at the most primal core of the galaxy itself, Chaos agrees that these dinner guests are not welcome in any way, shape, or bioform. In the end, though, the Tyranids represent the final fears of the galaxy itself. Despite the goals to conquer the galaxy as a whole, the remainder of the universe may very well be dead and derelict space. Instead of endless worlds and solar systems, it may just be bones and ash. The tendrils of the hive mind have wrapped themselves around the galaxy, and the only thing that's guaranteed is that dinner is served. However, the Tyranids are not simply the unending hordes of bugs. Beyond the more general buffet tactics of the force of the Tyranids, the hive mind has a more secretive and dangerous means of planetary conquest in the form of something a bit more terrestrial. General upheaval and revolution. However,
okay, I guess we're going into the Genestealer Cult next. Excellent. So, the Tyranids seem like they're the big bad, they're unstoppable, they're going to take over the galaxy unless all of the races band together temporarily to fight them. There are a lot of weaknesses for the Tyranids. Demons, but there's High Fleet Kronos. The demons convert matter into their forms, so like a pool of blood, some weird ritual fire will become a bloodletter, or it becomes Flamer of Tzeentch, something like that. Then the Tyranids created High Fleet Kronos, which shoots them from afar because the demons like close quarters, and then whatever bits of the demons are left, so they're not necessarily popping into the warp and then popping out, but the ones that manifest from actual matter, you can shoot that, it'll turn back into the blood pool or be fire that burns out, and that you can consume. The Silent King has been fighting the Necrons of the Necrons. He's been fighting the Tyranids beyond the galaxy's edge and awoke the Necrons to fight the Tyranids. That's where, yeah, High Fleet Kronos is the one that's fighting chaos. There's also corrupted hive minds. So on Necromunda, that is a Genestealer cult that the Hive Fleets avoid. It would either mess up their DNA or their psychic mind. It got nuked, it got weird, it would be bad for their physical or mental health as a race. There's also the Yumgal, the Moons of Yumgal. It may corrupt the Hive Fleets more if they reabsorb these Genestealers with tentacle faces, because they're not meant to have tentacle faces. That's a thing they have to consider. Tyranids still don't have a shooting detachment in 10th edition. Not one super focused on shooting. Not that I can think of, no. How is light infantry a counter to big monsters? So, the idea with heavy infantry is what you send the elephants at. It rushes into a formation of infantry, they stand there, they get crushed. That's what happened the few times that elephants fought Romans. Then Scipio changed it, so it was like, okay, we need to have looser formations so we can make avenues for the elephants to go down. We don't send cavalry against them because that's where you get the Mumma kill versus the Rohirrim, and they get smashed because it's big, but the elephant is bigger, far bigger than a horse. Light infantry are what you use against the elephants because you have like 8 people in a loose formation surrounding the elephant with spears. Whatever way it turns, you can jab it in the back. If it tries to swing its elephant tusks at one person, they're wearing so little armor that they can dodge and move and get on the floor quickly and it'll sweep over them. That's why light infantry is a good counter to monsters. And elephants. There's also like fire and all sorts. So when you're hunting an elephant, people go in with relatively light equipment and spears. Mammoth hunting was done by this not just because of that's the technology at the time, it worked. Yeah, we'd like guns, but all the same. I know my ancient history stuff. Right, let's talk about the revolutions of the Genestealer cult.
Though the idea of a societal revolt for the good of the populace is an admirable thing, these leaders have the nefarious intent of the hive mind itself. These are the downtrodden and the oppressed, the revolutionaries to a better cause, the heralds of the Star Children. These are the
Genestealer cult. Yeah.
In the sunless body of our hive, the flock of the faithful grows. We are guided by our great Father's sacred vision, protected by his loving hands. Within these holy shadows we dwell, while the impure bathe in spire-topped starlight. And what lies between those stars? What sails beyond those distant suns? Shrouded in night, born within that eternal black, our redeemers, our gods, truer than the silent, long-dead emperor, the children of the void. We hear them in our dreams, we feel them in our blood. They call and we will answer. We will rise and claim the engines of labor that have bound us in servitude. This world will burn. It will be cleansed, purified, made ready, and the heavens will deliver our reward.
It was pretty
the
good
ground
art.
zero of a
Then we have this art,
Genestealer
second
cult
edition,
comes in
first
the
edition
form
art.
of the Genestealer itself. Deep in the depths of a planet, a Genestealer acts as almost an advanced recon unit for the Tyranids, and were the first Tyranid units encountered by the Imperium itself long before the first Hive fleet made its presence known. Unlike the Tyranids that can only reproduce through the birthing pools in the fleet, a Genestealer reproduces via the Big Smooch. The Genestealer kiss is essentially what the facehugger alien does. It attaches to a victim and releases an embryo. However,
it's also in the first time they were mentioned, they had more like sucker faces and a dark tongue, and it was exactly like an alien. It impregnates you with a baby alien, then it bursts out and it kills you. It's like, oh yeah, it's a chest burster. It's exactly like the xenomorphs from the Alien series. I thought you can also like destroy the Tyranids in space because you can destroy their hive fleets. They don't have amazing hive fleety power. If you hit them with enough stuff, they die in space, and there's no food in space, and they just disappear. You can also do what the Dark Eldar did at one point, and after they've consumed a world, poison the digestion pools. Then they've got to choose either to take the poison and try and adapt to the poison just to get the food, or leave it behind and be able to do nothing with it. That was 6th or 7th
instead
edition.
of a chest burster, the embryo alters the genetic makeup of the host itself, turning it into the primary conductor of a localized version of a hive mind known as the brood mind. Any offspring that this host produces is known as a Genestealer hybrid, and the host assures their survival to continue to reproduce. The first few generations of a Genestealer hybrid look more like the Genestealer itself, which in our current reality would be terrifying, but considering how the vast majority of humanity is a little mutated in 40k, it doesn't stand out as much as it should. As the generations continue, the mutations and the general alien look is almost entirely phased out, and the resulting hybrids look almost identical to the species that they once were. Due to the size of most worlds, the makings of a Genestealer cult can exist almost entirely in secret, generation after generation. After a certain period of time, those hybrids will make their way into generalized society. Still connected to the mind of the Genestealer itself, the hybrids operate with the express goal of gaining power within society itself in a political and religious sense. Most of the time, they will present themselves as revolutionaries, looking for the betterment of the population. And honestly, it sounds great for a lot of the folks on the planet. By the people, for the people. As they expand more openly, the crossbreeding continues until all aspects of the planet's society is infiltrated. However, all bets are off when a hive fleet comes close enough. When a Tyranid hive fleet gets close enough to a planet, the broodmine activates essentially an endgame scenario. The once political and religious leaders become bloodthirsty fanatics that work to finalize the collapse of society and the death of those who oppose them. But to those in the broodmine, the god they believe in is coming, and this is holy justice and vindication for their religious and political beliefs. As the hive arrives, the planet is essentially ripe for the taking. The original Genestealer pieces out to the next world or is reabsorbed for deployment elsewhere, and the Tyranids begin to take the planet for themselves. The cultists sing praises and holy songs as the Tyranids begin to eat everything up in kind of a meet the pyro sense of religious delusion. But as they are harvested, some of them are snapped back to reality, oops, there goes gravity, before they are thrown into the biomass soup. For a fleeting second, they see that this was all a ruse to consume the world and that their false gods were a bunch of hungry bugs. The cultists essentially put the checkerboard dining cloth on the table for them and invited them for a feast. Due to the constant redeployment of Genestealers, there are known cults that pop up across the Imperium itself. Some of the more well-known ones are the cult of the Bladed Cog or the Rusted Claw, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, different cults that keep popping up all over the galaxy.
The general makeup of a cult depends on the stratosphere, the area that's kind of infiltrating. If you are attacking the ecclesiarchy, you may get a more religious cult with divine leaders. That's the pauper princes. If you're doing more of a creepy nomads in the desert, like Hills Have Eyes kind of idea, then you have the Rusted Claw. They use the Outlander Claw style detachment with the bikes and the nomads, and Necromunda models if you so wish. The Hive Cult is the Red Army without the commissars. It's massed soldiers and tanks. And if you're infiltrating the Admech, that's the Bladed Cog. The ones we saw a bit further, a little bit before, like 2 seconds before. Can it go back a few seconds? Maybe a few more seconds? Too many seconds?
The Imperium itself.
The ones with red armor.
Some of the more well-known ones.
There we are. So they infiltrate the Mechanicus. We've got the Mechanicus helmet on the left-hand side.
Cult of the Bladed Cog or the Rusted Claw, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, different cults that keep popping up all over the galaxy as the Genestealers spread. And due to their covert means taking over the planets, they are not generally viewed to be a threat until it is far too late. And due to the know-how of Genestealers, they tend to be predatory to those in the lower classes of a given planet. The Genestealer cults overall have really come into their own, commercially and artistically. They have very much embraced the revolutionaries aesthetic and crafted a fascinating method in doing so. It's this great combination of this pseudo-Marxist Bolshevik uprising mixed with the Hills Have Eyes in the populace. What's particularly enjoyable about their uprising is that often from their point of view, the reasons they have are extremely justified. Most of the members of the GSC are the extremely impoverished and menial laborers of the Imperium, who honestly wouldn't need an alien presence to provide a manifesto on reasons to revolt. Their weapons are all makeshift and often involve things like mining lasers, drilling saws, demolition charges, giant stop signs. Their political...
Yeah, that's part of an aberrant model. You can, when they had a unit champion, you can make that unit champion with a like radioactive warning sign that's been ripped out of the ground. I like the Bladed Cog because I like the technology stuff side. I don't want an Admech army, but I'll happily take some Admech helmets and some robot bits. And it's like an idealized... What if we combine the human, the alien, and the machine to make, from this holy trinity, the best version of humanity you can have? It's a nice kind of philosophy within the whole yeah, we're miners that we're rising up, and it's like maybe the UK miners' strike of the 1980s. It depends how political you want to get into trying to figure out where different aspects come from. The Cult of the Spiral Dawn is a good book and audiobook that gives you the point of view of the cult as it starts its first generation. Pretty good stuff. Let's see if we get to the Shadow Throne.
Work quite well, as the cult ends up being really good at assassination, especially when you have a third arm holding a pistol beneath all those robes. They're a faction rife with fascination and culture, and their plans are generations in the making, to the end goal of being thrown right back into the soup by the star children they prepared the world for. And those are the threats to the galaxy now.
Okay, looks like we're at the end. So, getting to Earth was a big thing for the Genestealer Cult. The Genestealer Cult is being seen as more and more of a threat to the Imperium, because it's not just, oh yeah, the Tyranids are coming, if they absorb a planet or are about to absorb a planet, then we'll destroy it. Genestealer cults take over a world, and now you have a rebel world. And you can't quite kill everyone there to make sure you've got all of the Genestealers and all of the cultists, because if at least one of them survives, in theory, they can have children that perpetuates the generations. And as soon as you get to the 5th generation, which isn't the 5th generation, it is more pure strain Genestealers, and the cycle can start over all over again. In the 9th edition Genestealer Cult Codex was one of the minor cults, and they worked in an abattoir, and their whole thing was, okay, we can get a Genestealer cult smuggled off-world through the metal detectors by hiding it within the carcass of like a big grox creature, which is a megafauna. It's like a massive cow, bull, big thing like that. That got delivered to Earth, and then you have Games Workshop's equivalent of the Earth Hive from the Alien novel series, where you have a patriarch, and then you have Genestealers, and then you have a whole thing down to like the 4th generation. So we've been around for 50 years, maybe, doing that, just to get through to like the 4th generation. And that was in the Shadow Throne box. And when the Custodes found out, they're like, okay, we're going to deploy to Earth now and go deal with that. And that was the introduction of the Reductus Saboteur model. Lady that blows up stuff. 3rd generation, 2nd generation, that kind of area. 3 arms, but looks kind of human. It's never necessarily pinned down as to exactly, oh yeah, you have 2 arms, therefore you're 3rd or 4th generation. You can get mutants and stuff among them. Mutants among us. Right, let's see what we have to say for the very end.
The degradation of almost every species is now behest by the Tyranid menace, and all of the infighting between each and every single one of them will be their undoing. The world of Warhammer is a bleak and horrendous one, and that is in its own right the charm. It is so large, so vast, so absolutely horrendous and insane, and yet is treated with 100% severity and seriousness.
They play it straight
in the beginning
within
of
the setting.
Part 1, I gave you an abridged and different opening
Orks are funny,
to
but
the Warhammer
Orks are
world,
horrifying.
the grim darkness of the far future. And I leave you with this Part 2 with the full quote itself. It is the 41st millennia. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. Yet even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets across the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest amongst his soldiers are the Adepta Sororitas, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are legion, the Imperial Guard, and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few.
Mention
But
the
for
battle
all
sisters.
their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Excellent. There we are. I hope that's been a good reaction to the whole thing and also adding a lot more. Now, my favourite Genestealer Cult unit's a difficult one. I don't know what I would pick. Neophytes maybe? Acolytes? I like the basic infantry of most factions. So if we look a bit more at the Genestealer Cults, Magus Prime. Yeah, I mean, there's so many characters, maybe too many characters. But Acolytes and Neophytes are probably what I'd pick. Aberrants, I'm not super bothered about. I want something that evokes, like, the multi-generational situation of the Genestealer Cult. So that's why I go for the Acolytes and the Neophytes, which is either going to represent the first and second generation if it's Acolytes, or third and fourth generation if it's the Neophytes. Other stuff's more, yeah, this was added later. It doesn't hold true to the whole earlier editions of 40k. You can like newer stuff, but the older stuff is what gets me the most. Right, do we have any final thoughts or comments? Or any more things you want me to cover and talk about? Like, so there weren't any Grey Knights. Grey Knights did not come up. He didn't do like, okay, here's the Ordo Hereticus, then the Battle Sisters, then the Death Watch and the Ordo Xenos, and then Ordo Malleus and Grey Knights. So Grey Knights have just gotten missed entirely. Unless he mentioned them briefly with the Space Marines, but I don't think he did. So every faction indeed. What is the best Genestealer Cult unit right now? It might be Pure Strain Genestealers, because they are great for getting up the board, infiltrating, blocking enemies. They can do damage if you attach a Patriarch in the Final Day detachment or the Biosanctum Broodstone detachment, or maybe also in the Host of Ascension detachment. They can... Ooh, what's that? Ah, someone joined the channel. Very welcome, very welcome. They are also now 2 Resurgence points to bring back a unit of 5. So I will bring back a unit of 5 Pure Strain Genestealers instead of some Acolytes, because the Genestealers can advance and charge. If you want to get them into a place to do a thing, any unit of 5 can do that. If you want to get them into combat, Pure Strain Genestealers can get there quickly. I think Pure Strain Genestealers are probably the best unit. Metamorphs are pretty good. Aberrants are not as good as they were in the Index. And then you have an assortment of characters. But yeah, I'd say the Pure Strain Genestealers. What we may want... let's see. Membership gifting. Send 5 gifted members. There we go. People can become members now. Or rejoin as members. Have a gifted membership. Excellent. So for the next month, you are members of the channel, the 5 of you. Yay! You get a little sticker next to your name. If there's any members-only things, I don't think I have any members-only things planned on YouTube, then you'll see that. It's good. Good to be a member. And if you want to continue the support, you'll see your name at the end of the credits. It's a nice thing to have. I usually give some away every live stream. So at my next live stream... Oh, what's the topic of my next live stream planned? Haven't done a tier list. Could do a Battle Sister tier list. That'd probably be the most relevant one. Genestealer Cult tier list is also an option. Why not both? First one and then the other. Wonderful. If anyone wants to drop any tip money and thanks for enjoying this video, then that's in the description if you want to drop that in and have it pop up at the bottom of the screen. And it also fills the bar in the top left of the screen. If you wanted to see Bricky's original video, that is also in the description if you wanted to see it there and not through a VTuber's reaction. Which is of course how things are done these days. But I think I'm happy to end this live stream here. We've done it all and it only took 3.5 hours. Why, that's one game of 40k. So I hope you all have a great day of 40k, and I'll see you in the next video and the next live stream. Bye bye.